हेलो फ्रेंड्स, वेलकम बैक टू माय चैनल। तो आज की वीडियो में इसका नेक्स्ट पार्ट लेके आ चुका हूँ। तो बिना किसी देरी के चलिए शुरुआत करते हैं।
Chapter 36. We ministers were just about to fight to the death. Why did the crown prince surrender first? Muzan stood quietly in place, the hand that had pierced through the old emperor not even stained with a single drop of blood, pale to the point of being nearly transparent. Without any spirit rings manifesting around him, he still made everyone present feel a deep-seated, unbeatable fear. Jing Hongchen stared fixedly at Muzan, then turned his head to look at Kong Deming beside him, the shock in his eyes even surpassing the fear of the old emperor's death. In that exact instant just now, he clearly sensed the burst of Kong Deming's spirit power. As a level 94 titled Douluo, Silver Moon Douluo, Kong Deming had not yet set foot in the domain of a super Douluo, but his peerless mastery of spirit tools was enough to allow him to go toe-to-toe with a limit Douluo. He was the true stabilizing pillar of the Sun Moon Empire and the pinnacle of the Soul Engineer world. Yet just a moment ago, Kong Deming did not even have the chance to deploy his defense before the old emperor was already dead. If an attack were directed at Kong Deming, he likely wouldn't even be able to protect his own safety. The speed of this fellow before them was so fast that even Kong Deming's mental force was unable to capture it. Father. On the wheelchair, Emperor Shu Tianren let out a shrill and miserable cry, but on that face of his, aside from just the right amount of sorrow, there was even more of an unmaskable fear and panic. Yes, fear. Even though he dreamed of that old immortal dying quickly so that he could take the throne, he definitely did not want it to happen under such circumstances. If the other party could crush the old emperor to death as easily as squashing an ant, could they not crush a crippled crown prince like him as well? In the face of absolute power, any imperial art of governance or scheming appeared so pale and ridiculous. Jing Hongchen took a deep breath, forcefully suppressing the fear in his heart, and suddenly turned his head to look at Zheng Liwu standing behind Muzan, shouting sternly. Zheng Liwu, what on earth does your holy spirit cult want to do? Openly assassinating the emperor of our Sun Moon Empire, are you trying to start an all-out war between the Sun Moon Empire and the holy spirit cult? Following closely, his gaze pierced like a sharp sword toward the familiar figure on the other side. And you, Xuanzi. Jing Hongchen gritted his teeth. The Xuanzi before him was much weaker compared to the evil Xuanzi of that day, and coupled with the drumstick in that fellow's hand, this was the elder of Shrek Academy's Sea Gods Pavilion, gluttonous Douluo Xuanzi. As an elder of Shrek Academy, to actually directly participate in the action of assassinating the emperor of our Sun Moon Empire, you have completely thrown away Shrek Academy's face. Jing Hongchen did not speak out to define the Holy Spirit cult as an evil soul master organization, as this was not something that could be brought to the light. Hearing Jing Hongchen's angry scolding, Xuanzi suddenly let out a soft chuckle. A trace of disdain flashed across his eyes as he casually picked up the wine gourd hanging at his waist and took a gulp, his tone filled with arrogance. War, HMPH, mere Sun Moon Empire, how dare you talk about war with my Shrek Academy? Let me tell you, my Shrek Academy has a 10,000-year heritage, when have we ever backed down? If you want to fight, then let's fight, this old man will accompany you to the end. However, the exact moment his voice fell, Muzan, who was standing in the front, tilted his head slightly, and those cold eyes of his swept over him indifferently. Just this single glance. Xuanzi, who had just been full of imposing momentum, instantly looked like a rooster whose neck had been choked. His voice came to an abrupt halt, and he even shrank his neck, honestly retreating behind Muzan, not daring to say even half a word more. This scene made the eyelids of Jing Hongchen and Kong Deming twitch wildly. Even the unruly gluttonous Douluo was tamed into this state. What kind of monster was this Muzan anyway? At this time, Zheng Liwu, who had been silent all along, slowly stepped forward, his voice sounding eerie from beneath his black robe. Elder Kong, Hall Master Jing, those who know the times are wise men. Now the situation of this continent has changed, I advise the two of you to submit to Lord Muzan. Otherwise. He glanced at the gradually cooling corpse of the old emperor on the ground, his tone understated. The ending will likely be the same as his majesty's. Even a ruler of a nation, in their mouths, died when they died, as if it were merely squashing an insect with a casual wave. This arrogance of ignoring life and trampling upon imperial power caused an unprecedented fury to erupt within Kong Deming's turbid old eyes. Do you want to live or die? Muzan finally spoke. He paid no attention to the anger of the two, simply spitting out a few words indifferently. The voice was not loud, but it clearly echoed in everyone's ears. Afterwards, those eyes of his devoid of any emotional coloring slowly shifted toward Emperor Shu Tianren on the wheelchair. Merely being stared at by that gaze made Emperor Shu Tianren feel as though he had died who knows how many times. In your dreams. Kong Deming slammed the cane in his hand heavily, and the level 94 spirit power on his body erupted without reservation. A huge silver moon condensed behind him from silver-white light, and countless precise spirit tool cannon barrels emerged from the void, locking onto Muzan and the other two. Although our Sun Moon Empire and the Holy Spirit cult have cooperation, that is established on the foundation of the Empire being primary and you being secondary. Now you have assassinated the monarch first and coerced us afterward, yet you still vainly attempt to make us submit to a group of hiding in the shadows evil soul masters. It is simply wishful thinking. Jing Hongchen's body was also surging with spirit power. Although fearful, as the Hall Master of Ming Hall, he had his own pride and bottom line. That's right, even if we die in battle today, we will never bow our heads to you. Just as these two pillars of the Empire were preparing to fight a desperate battle to the death to maintain the Empire's final dignity. A trembling yet eager voice abruptly rang out. I am willing. Question mark. The spirit power that Kong Deming had just condensed instantly stagnated for a split second, almost causing a backlash against himself. Jing Hongchen also suddenly turned his head, looking at the source of the voice with an incredulous expression. As seen on the wheelchair, Emperor Shu Tianren's face was pale, his forehead covered in cold sweat, yet he struggled to get down from the wheelchair, lowering his noble head toward Muzan's direction. I, Emperor Shu Tianren, am willing to submit. As long as Lord can help me ascend the throne, from this day forth, the Sun Moon Empire is willing to follow the lead of the Holy Spirit cult in everything. Everything will listen to Lord's instructions. At this moment, the air seemed to have frozen. Jing Hongchen opened his mouth wide, his eyeballs practically about to pop out. We ministers were just about to fight to the death, why did the Crown Prince surrender first? What kind of operation was this? Was this the Crown Prince of their Sun Moon Empire? Facing the cannibalistic gazes of the two important ministers, Emperor Shu Tianren took a deep breath, a touch of righteous and heroic sorrow suddenly appearing on his face. Elder Kong, Hall Master Hongchen, I was also driven to no alternative. Tears streaming down his face, his tone was so sincere that it sounded as if he were truly considering the country and the people. Father is already dead. If we fight head-on against such an invincible powerhouse again, it will only make Ming capital flow with rivers of blood and cause countless innocent commoners to be brutally massacred. For the continuation of the Sun Moon Empire, to spare the common people from devastation, what does Emperor Shu Tianren's personal honor or disgrace amount to? Even if I bear infamy, I can only endure the humiliation and shoulder the heavy burden, choosing to submit. This speech was delivered with such passion and stirring emotion that it tugged at the heartstrings. If one didn't understand Emperor Shu Tianren's character, they would probably really be deceived by his hypocritical expression. Hey. Watching this scene, Xuanzi couldn't help cursing inwardly. This was the royal family of the Sun Moon Empire. They were simply a bunch of spineless cowards, kneeling so easily, compared to the backbone of Shrek Academy, it was simply worlds apart. However, he only dared to curse in his heart. On the surface, he remained honest and obedient. Muzan did not show the slightest bit of joy because of Emperor Shu Tianren's surrender, nor did he even give him an extra glance, as if all of this was only natural. His gaze still fell calmly upon Kong Deming and Jing Hongchen. What about you two? Kong Deming let out a cold snort, his silver hair fluttering, his upright and unyielding momentum refusing to give an inch. Jing Hongchen also bit his teeth tightly. Although he was usually slick and worldly, in the face of such matters of great right and wrong, he likewise possessed the pride of a sole engineer. Fat chance. Just as Jing Hongchen was preparing to mobilize all his spirit power, willing to detonate himself to drag this group of madmen down with him, the corner of his eye suddenly caught a glimpse of something in the distance. Over there, two young figures, a man and a woman, were walking toward this side. It was precisely Xiao Hongchen and Meng Hongchen, who had come looking for him. No. Jing Hongchen's pupils instantly contracted into pinpricks, an unprecedented terror surging within his heart. Run, don't come over. He screamed frantically in his heart, but under the suppression of Muzan's aura, he couldn't even transmit his voice out. It was this extremely minute change in gaze. Muzan captured it. He slowly raised his hand and gently grabbed toward the void. Space rippled with an eerie wave. The next instant, Xiao Hongchen, who had still been 100 meters away, only felt his vision blur, and his entire person appeared without warning right in front of Muzan. That pale and slender palm locked onto Xiao Hongchen's slender neck with moderate force. Xiao Hongchen hadn't even reacted to what had happened when he felt his breathing choke. His entire body was hoisted up, his feet dangling in the air, and that extremely arrogant face instantly flushed red. This is your weakness, right? Muzan tilted his head, looking at the pale-faced Jing Hongchen, his voice still as cold as before. Chapter 37. If it can't be done within 3 days, I will destroy the entire Sun Moon Empire. Jing Hongchen looked at Xiao Hongchen, who was being held in Muzan's hand. That face was now left with only pale despair and dejection. He opened his mouth, wanting to say something, but found his throat too dry to utter even a sound. That was his pride, the future hope of the Hongchen family, and even more so, the grandson he cherished like a precious treasure. If Xiao Hongchen died here, then even if he died in battle today for his country, what face would he have to face his ancestors in the underworld? Forget it. An aged sigh broke the dead silence. Kong Deming took a deep look at Jing Hongchen beside him, who seemed to have aged 10 years in an instant. A trace of helplessness and desolation flashed through those turbid old eyes. He slowly restrained the terrifying spirit power fluctuations around his body, and the ready-to-go silver moon phantom behind him also dissipated accordingly. Hall Master Hongchen, there is no need to blame yourself. Kong Deming's voice was somewhat low, yet it carried a kind of elder's consolation. Circumstances are stronger than people. Today's predicament is not a fault in battle. Jing Hongchen trembled all over, his eye sockets turning slightly red. He knew that Kong Deming was giving him a way out, and also a concession he had to make in order to protect Xiao Hongchen. I understand. Jing Hongchen spat out these few words with difficulty, the spirit power radiance on his body dimming along with it. He slowly lowered his head, no longer looking at Muzan, nor daring to look at the grandson held in Muzan's hand again. His entire person exuded a thick sense of frustration. At this point, the Sun Moon Empire's two supreme combat forces, Worship Hall Master Kong Deming and Ming Hall Master Jing Hongchen, completely surrendered in front of absolute power and the cruel reality. Is it over? Xuanzi, hiding behind Muzan, widened his eyes with an expression of disbelief. He looked at the two old fellows who were just acting desperate and unyielding, yet had now turned so cowardly just like that. All because a little kid was captured. Xuanzi couldn't help but slap his own thigh with some regret. If he had known these two old fellows cared so much about this brat, the old man should have directly made a move back then and tied up this pair of siblings. If that were the case, those guys from the Sun Moon Empire would have long since obeyed Shrek unconditionally. As he thought this, he secretly glanced at Muzan's back again, the sense of fear in his heart deepening by a few fractions. This method was indeed much more useful than his own brain that only knew how to drink alcohol and eat chicken drumsticks. And Zhongli Wu, standing on the other side, although still looking gloomy, had the hand hidden beneath his black robe tremble slightly. As the leader of the Holy Spirit cult, he had a clear insight into the weaknesses of human nature, but he was even more aware that the reason Kong Deming and Jing Hongchen surrendered so quickly was that Xiao Hongchen was merely a catalyst. The true root cause still lay in Muzan's despair-inducing strength. That terrifying power was completely unreasonable, one could even say it was like a dimensional reduction strike. Even Mother, or the chief elder Long Xiaoyao who was currently in seclusion. I'm afraid neither of them is this person's match. Zhongli Wu was secretly shocked in his heart. This fellow was outrageously strong, strong enough to suffocate people. Cough, cough, cough. Just at this moment, Muzan loosened his hand. Xiao Hongchen collapsed on the ground like a puddle of mud, panting heavily and coughing violently. His brain was completely blank, his eyes looking blankly at the ground. In that very instant just now, he felt as if he had truly taken a trip through the gates of hell. That murderous intent emanating through his body directly crushed his mental defense line, making it impossible for him to reassemble the ability to think even now. That youth who was usually arrogant and self-proclaimed a genius was incomparably fragile at this moment. Is this the gap in strength? Now, are you satisfied? Muzan did not pay attention to Xiao Hongchen on the ground, nor did he care about everyone else's thoughts. He only spoke faintly, his tone still calm and waveless, as if he had just done an insignificant trivial matter. But these simple words were like a heavy hammer, fiercely smashing into the hearts of everyone present, making that heavy sense of oppression climb to the peak once again. Satisfied, extremely satisfied. Emperor Shu Tianren had already been helped back onto the wheelchair by the guards behind him. Although his face was still pale, he reacted extremely quickly, immediately putting on an extremely submissive smiling face. Since he had already knelt, he might as well kneel thoroughly. As long as he could sit in that position, as long as he could master that supreme power, whose dog wasn't it to beat? Furthermore, it was such a powerful backer. My lord is peerless under heaven, being able to work for my lord is the fortune of our Sun Moon Empire. Emperor Shu Tianren exhausted his flattering abilities, asking cautiously. I wonder what my lord desires. Whether it is spirit tools, rare metals, or gold, silver, treasures, beauties, or status, as long as my Sun Moon Empire has it, my lord just needs to speak. This emperor, oh no, I will definitely use the power of the entire country to satisfy my lord. When Jing Hongchen and Kong Deming heard these words, their faces became even uglier. They turned their heads away one after another, unable to bear looking straight at this new emperor without any bottom line. Muzan lowered his eyes slightly, his gaze sweeping across that flattering face without any emotion in his eyes. He never cared about other people's thoughts. As long as they acted according to what he said, there would be no problem. What I want is very simple. His voice echoed along the empty riverbank, clear, cold, and unquestionable. Starting immediately, to the Star Luo Empire, Tianyun Empire, Douluo Empire, and Shrek Academy. Muzan paused for a moment. Formally declare war. Silence. A death-like silence. Jing Hongchen suddenly raised his head, his eyeballs almost popping out. Kong Deming almost failed to stand steady, and even Emperor Shu Tianren, who had just worn a flattering expression, had a stiff expression at this moment, his mouth wide open and unable to close for a long time. Declare war. And simultaneously declaring war all at once on the three major empires originally belonging to the Douluo continent, plus Shrek Academy, which had a foundation of 10,000 years and was hailed as the continent's #1 academy. Mad. This was simply madness. Although the Sun Moon Empire's national strength was currently flourishing and spirit tool technology was changing with each passing day, it indeed had constant friction with the surrounding major empires, and there were even small-scale conflicts at the borders. However, those were regional frictions. A full-scale war meant that the entire continent would plunge into the flames of war, meaning hundreds of millions of living beings would be dragged into it. Furthermore, taking on 4 at once, this was completely a suicidal behavior. My lord. Emperor Shu Tianren swallowed a mouthful of saliva, his voice even trembling. Isn't this too? He wanted to say it was too rushed, wanted to say they weren't prepared yet, wanted to say this would drag the Sun Moon Empire into the abyss. But he didn't dare say it. Because Muzan's cold gaze was quietly staring at him, just like looking at a dead person. 3 days. Muzan's tone was indifferent yet extremely domineering. If it can't be done within 3 days. He withdrew his hand, turned around, and faced away from the crowd, leaving behind only a despair-inducing back. I will personally destroy the entire Sun Moon Empire. Destroy the entire Sun Moon Empire. Naturally, everyone wouldn't think Muzan was just casually talking, he truly possessed this kind of strength. A trace of chill welled up in the hearts of Jing Hongchen and the others. Although they were already top-tier powerhouses on the continent, at this moment they felt a profound sense of powerlessness. Chapter 38. Spirit Hall is returning to Douluo continent. Outside Shrek City, the sky was slightly overcast, and the air was humid. 2 figures were walking one after the other on a path leading to the outer edges of the Stardow Great Forest. Walking in front was a middle-aged man wearing thick black-framed glasses, who was none other than Teacher Wang Yan, a teacher from the outer court of Shrek Academy. Following behind him was a youth who looked to be only 13 or 14 years old. The youth was fair-skinned and thin, wearing a pair of round-framed glasses on the bridge of his nose, and constantly holding a thick book in his hands, lowering his head from time to time to deduce something, a typical bookworm look. His name was Chen Fan, and among the students Teacher Wang Yan taught in this batch, he had the highest theoretical talent, but his spirit aptitude was completely mediocre. Teacher, what you said, is it true? Chen Fan stopped, adjusted his glasses, and asked somewhat panting, his eyes flashing with a light woven of thirst for knowledge and suspicion. Just jumping into the river can make one stronger. This kind of thing really sounds quite inconsistent with the common sense and logic of the Spirit Master's world. Teacher Wang Yan also stopped, glanced back at his student who loved to split hairs, and gave a bitter smile. It is inconsistent with common sense, and can even be said to be absurd. Teacher Wang Yan looked up at the undulating silhouette of the Stardow Great Forest in the distance, a trace of complex emotion flashing through his eyes. Not certain, but there is a high probability it is true. If it were fake, the Academy wouldn't be tight-lipped about that area, but if it were true, the Academy hasn't sent heavily armed guards or even blocked the news. Teacher Wang Yan paused, his tone becoming serious. This indicates that there is an existence there that even Shrek Academy dreads, or perhaps powerful spirit beasts frequent the area. After all, although that is a small river in the outer perimeter, the Stardow Great Forest is unfathomable, and no one can say for sure whether a 100,000-year spirit beast might wander out. To be safe, let's go check the upper reaches of the river. Chen Fan nodded thoughtfully. No one knew better than him how much Teacher Wang Yan yearned to grow stronger. Limited by his talent, Teacher Wang Yan walked an exceptionally difficult path in cultivation, yet he had never given up any possible opportunity. This adventure was also Teacher Wang Yan's well-considered decision. Teacher, I believe you. Chen Fan closed the book in his hands, his gaze firm. Let's go. The two quickened their pace and soon arrived beside a winding, flowing stream. The river water here was crystal clear, and both banks were shaded by green trees, looking no different from ordinary wild streams. Teacher Wang Yan stood on the bank, closed his eyes, and released his spirit power, trying to perceive this stream. Moments later, he opened his eyes with a tight frown. I can't perceive anything. There really is a problem. Teacher Wang Yan muttered to himself. This bizarre phenomenon instead confirmed the authenticity of the rumors. Chen Fan, step back. Teacher Wang Yan instructed in a low voice. He did not jump down rashly. As a rigorous theoretical spirit master, he was accustomed to testing the rules first. He took out a storage spirit tool that had accompanied him for many years from his bosom, a somewhat worn metal bracer. Taking a deep breath, he forcefully threw it toward the middle of the river. Plop. Splashes of water flew up, and ripples surged. The next second, the river water suddenly churned, and a strange energy fluctuation spread outward. Under the shocked gazes of Teacher Wang Yan and Chen Fan, a figure sitting on a blue stone holding a fishing rod floated up from the bottom of the water, looking quite lazy. With a casual wave of the fishing rod, a golden storage spirit tool soon appeared. Oh, young Teacher Wang Yan, is this golden storage spirit tool the one you dropped? Teacher Wang Yan was stunned. That golden spirit tool was definitely countless times better than his own. But he took a deep breath and shook his head. No. The gold spirit tool disappeared, and the fishing rod waved again. This time, a silver storage spirit tool appeared. Then, is this silver storage spirit tool the one you dropped? Teacher Wang Yan still shook his head. Neither is it. Then is it this old storage spirit tool? Yes, this is mine. Teacher Wang Yan answered truthfully. You are an honest child. To reward your honesty, all 3 of these spirit tools are given to you. As he spoke, he waved his hand, and the 3 storage spirit tools fluttered down into Teacher Wang Yan's hands. Holding these 3 spirit tools, Teacher Wang Yan's heart churned with stormy waves. It was real. The rumors were actually true. An honest reply would really bring rewards, and such bountiful rewards at that. Teacher Wang Yan raised his hand, and the coiling dragon rod appeared in his hand. Teacher Wang Yan threw it directly down, but unfortunately, there was no reaction at all. It seemed that if there were to be any changes, he could only go down himself. He turned his head to look at Chen Fan, who was already dumbfounded. Chen Fan, did you see clearly? The process is like this. No matter what temptations appear, you must answer with integrity. Chen Fan swallowed a mouthful of saliva, nodded hard, and adjusted the glasses on the bridge of his nose. Teacher, I understand, rest assured. Teacher Wang Yan took a deep breath and patted Chen Fan's shoulder. Good. He absolutely trusted this student's character. Plop. Without hesitation, Teacher Wang Yan leapt forward and jumped into the river. The river water turned again. Moments later, Lin Fang's figure reappeared. This time, a figure radiating divine golden light all over appeared on the fishing rod. That person had dazzling blonde hair, a handsome and resolute face, and wore a set of gorgeous golden armor, emitting a very sacred aura. Oh, young Chen Fan, is this golden Teacher Wang Yan the one you dropped? Chen Fan was stunned. This person looked like a young Teacher Wang Yan, like Teacher Wang Yan in his teens, but the feeling he gave people was that this guy was strong, extremely strong. To put it bluntly, 10 Teacher Wang Yan wouldn't be enough for him to beat. No. Chen Fan still remembered what his teacher had instructed him, to answer with integrity. The next moment, Lin Feng waved the fishing rod again, and a man with silver hair, wearing a silver gray robe and an introverted aura appeared. He looked equally young, and even though his aura was restrained, Chen Fan could still feel that this fellow was likewise extremely formidable. Then is this silver-haired Teacher Wang Yan the one you dropped? Neither is he. Chen Fan continued to shake his head. Then, is it this completely ordinary-looking Teacher Wang Yan who doesn't seem to have anything special about him tilde? Although Chen Fan really wanted to complain, seeing that compared to the first two Teacher Wang Yan figures, this one was truly ordinary, he held it back. Teacher Wang Yan was indeed very ordinary, but he was also deeply admirable to him. Yes. Very good, you are also an honest child. To reward your honesty, all 3 of these Teacher Wang Yan figures are given to you. Whoosh, whoosh, whoosh. 3 figures were directly thrown onto the bank by Lin Feng, making a series of loud noises. The original Teacher Wang Yan opened his eyes and cautiously looked at these 2 young, himself, his throat going dry, completely unsure of what to say for a moment. However, he finally spoke up. My name is Teacher Wang Yan, an ordinary teacher of Shrek Academy. My spirit is the coiling dragon rod, and I am a spirit king. The blonde Teacher Wang Yan spoke first. His voice was loud, powerful, and full of confidence. My name is Chenggu Yan, my spirit is the awakening holy golden dragon, a rank 59 spirit king. The silver-haired Teacher Wang Yan spoke very calmly. Qian Jun, spirit is the coiling dragon rod, a rank 59 spirit king. Qian Jun. Hearing this name, Teacher Wang Yan's pupils shrank violently. As a teacher at Shrek Academy who specialized in researching the history of spirits, he was far too sensitive to this name. 10,000 years ago, Douluo Qian Jun of Spirit Hall also had the coiling dragon rod as his spirit. Before Teacher Wang Yan could recover from his shock, that blonde man named Chenggu Yan looked intently at the 2 of them and suddenly said, the 3 of you, join my Spirit Hall. Quote. Spirit Hall. That organization that had already been destroyed by the sea god Tang San 10,000 years ago was actually brought up again by someone. However, shouldn't these words be spoken by Qian Jun? Why was it spoken by this person named Chenggu Yan? Teacher Wang Yan took a deep breath, trying hard to keep his voice calm as he looked at the 2. Although the 2 looked very similar to him, yet, he found that these 2 seemed to also have their own experiences and memories rather than merely being enhanced versions of himself. Sorry, I am a teacher of Shrek Academy, and Chen Fan is a student of Shrek Academy. We cannot join. Teacher Wang Yan hadn't expected that what was supposed to be an opportunity to grow stronger would encounter such an unexpected turn of events. If he allowed the organization Spirit Hall to return to Douluo continent, he would become a sinner of Shrek Academy. However, he could not continue making mistakes or join Spirit Hall, so he chose to politely decline. Hearing this, the smile on Chenggu Yan's face did not disappear, but a palpitating cold light suddenly flashed within those golden eyes. I think you have misunderstood. I am not asking for your opinion, I am merely notifying you. He slowly stepped forward. Boom. A terrifying aura abruptly burst forth. Teacher Wang Yan and Chen Fan were suppressed to the point where they couldn't move at all. Especially Teacher Wang Yan, whose expression became even uglier. They were both spirit kings, so why was the gap in strength so huge? Chapter 39. Remember, the honored elder of our Spirit Hall is named Xuanzi. Teacher Wang Yan knew he was no match and glanced at Chen Fan beside him. He was not someone who feared death. As a teacher of Shrek Academy, for the sake of glory and to protect his students, he was ready to sacrifice himself at any time. But at this moment, the situation was completely different. Teacher Wang Yan turned his head with difficulty and looked at Chen Fan beside him, whose face was pale with terror and whose legs were turning to jelly. Today, it was because of him that Chen Fan was dragged into this. Who? He lowered his head, his voice dry and hoarse. I agree. These 3 simple words seemed to drain all his strength. Very good. The smile on Chenggu Yan's lips deepened, and the terrifying dragon might that had almost frozen space instantly receded. He was like a lofty monarch accepting the submission of his subjects. Wise men submit to circumstances. Although your strength is weak, your ability to read the situation isn't completely blind. With that, Chenggu Yan ignored Teacher Wang Yan's complex expression and tilted his head slightly, his golden eyes carrying a hint of playfulness as he looked at the silver-haired man who had remained silent all along, Qian Jun. And what about you? Hearing this, Qian Jun raised his gray eyes slightly, gazing calmly at Chenggu Yan. There was no tense confrontation as one might have imagined. A meaningless battle. Qian Jun's voice was as cold as ice. He slowly raised both hands, making a standard surrender posture, though there was no humbleness in his actions, instead, it exuded a sense of laziness. I can't beat you. I'll join too. Chenggu Yan nodded with satisfaction, a trace of arrogance showing on his handsome face. A wise choice. Just then, Chenggu Yan's gaze shifted, finally landing on the trembling youth cowering behind Teacher Wang Yan. Since the teacher has joined, as a student, naturally he cannot be left behind. Chenggu Yan touched his chin and frowned slightly, appearing very dissatisfied with Chen Fan's current state. Before his voice faded, Chenggu Yan suddenly struck. He didn't attack Chen Fan, instead, a gentle yet irresistible spirit power directly enveloped Chen Fan's body. Ah, teacher, help me. Amidst Chen Fan's terrified screams, his entire body rose into the air, tracing the graceful arc through the sky. Splash. Water splashed everywhere. Chen Fan was thrown directly into the clear stream, instantly submerged by the river water. After the classic 3 questions and 3 answers, 3 Chen fans were tossed onto the shore. At first, Golden Chen fan and Silver Chen fan could be said to be extremely arrogant, but they were quickly suppressed by Cheng Guyan, beating both fellows into submission directly. After all, no matter what, Spirit Hall was still short of people at the moment. As long as they could be subdued, subjugation was naturally the priority. Otherwise, Cheng Guyan would have long since killed those 2 ring spirit masters. Personnel are complete. Next, it's time to establish our Spirit Hall base. That city ahead looks not bad, let's choose this place. Cheng Guyan looked towards the city not far away, adhering to the principle of proximity. Hearing this, Teacher Wang Yan, who had been acting like an invisible person on the side, felt his heart skip a beat. This place is very close to Shrek City. If Shrek Academy discovers Spirit Hall, I'm afraid. Although Cheng Guyan's spirit was very strong, and his overall strength absolutely crushed his own, after all, he was merely a spirit king, not even a spirit emperor. Moreover, Shrek Academy had more than one titled Douluo. Even if the titled Douluos didn't make a move, some of the stronger teachers in the academy could easily crush Cheng Guyan to death. Teacher Wang Yan's current situation was extremely awkward. On one hand, as a member of Shrek, he instinctively hoped the academy would step in to eliminate this unstable factor flying the banner of Spirit Hall. But on the other hand, he was terrified that if the academy really made a move, would it also wipe him out along with the innocent Chen fan. After all, in the eyes of those unaware, he was currently mixed up with these remnant factions. Furthermore, those 2 fellows wore faces identical to his own. Once a fight broke out, it would be impossible to clear his name. To save his life and to prevent Shrek Academy from suffering unnecessary chaos, Teacher Wang Yan bit the bullet and stepped forward. Shrek Academy, what kind of thing is that? Cheng Guyan spoke casually upon hearing this, treating it as a faction he had never even heard of. Shrek Academy, what kind of thing? How could such words be spoken? You must know that Shrek Academy was an academy that had stood proudly on Douluo continent for tens of thousands of years, and 10,000 years ago, it even produced 7 god ascenders. Even now, it remained the #1 academy on Douluo continent, enjoying a formidable reputation. However, Cheng Guyan came out of that river, so it was excusable that he didn't know such things. Teacher Wang Yan briefly told Cheng Guyan about Shrek Academy. The subtext was already quite clear. Although Cheng Guyan had a very strong spirit and great talent, he was definitely top tier even among spirit kings. Shrek Academy wouldn't send a spirit king to single combat Cheng Guyan. Hearing Teacher Wang Yan's words, Cheng Guyan couldn't help chuckling lightly. Even when Teacher Wang Yan mentioned that Shrek Academy had many titled Douluos, he didn't seem afraid at all. Looking at Cheng Guyan's appearance, Teacher Wang Yan's heart couldn't help but skip a beat. Could this guy challenge titled Douluos with the strength of a spirit king? Was this version of himself so formidable? No. No matter what, it was impossible for a spirit king to defeat a titled Douluo. It is fine, an honored elder of our Spirit Hall has already come to this world. The titled Douluos in that so-called Shrek Academy will definitely not be his match. Besides, as long as we do not commit acts that violate justice, we will not have conflicts with Shrek Academy. Of course, this Shrek Academy will ultimately have to submit to our Spirit Hall. A flash of absolute confidence crossed Cheng Guyan's eyes. Even if it was the #1 academy on Douluo continent, so what? Only Spirit Hall was the only choice in this world. An honored elder. Teacher Wang Yan couldn't help but be stunned. Didn't this Cheng Guyan come out of the river water? How could there be another honored elder who had already come to this world? You wouldn't think that the highest combat power of our Spirit Hall is just a mere spirit king like me, would you? Cheng Guyan looked at Teacher Wang Yan with a half smile, an appearance that made Teacher Wang Yan feel extremely guilty. That was indeed what he thought. After all, Spirit Hall had been destroyed for who knew how many years. Now that another version of himself emerging from the river said he wanted to rebuild Spirit Hall, naturally, he assumed this was just Cheng Guyan's personal idea. Never mind, let's put the matter of the base aside for now and go find our Spirit Hall's honored elder first. Remember, the honored elder of our Spirit Hall is named Xuanzi. Cheng Guyan's words completely baffled Teacher Wang Yan. Xuanzi. Wasn't this the senior elder of the Sea Gods Pavilion of their Shrek Academy? When did he become an honored elder of your Spirit Hall? Chapter 40. Whoever it is, I am invincible anyway. Shrek Academy, Sea Gods Pavilion. Yan Xiao stood before that wooden door, but his body trembled slightly and uncontrollably. As the dean of Shrek Academy's Spirit Department and a 95th rank Super Douluo, he had long stood at the apex of the continent's Spirit Master's world, but at this moment, after knowing who he was about to see, Yan Xiao was still very nervous. Who? Yan Xiao took a deep breath, forcibly suppressed the distracting thoughts in his mind, adjusted his somewhat stiff facial expression, and tried his best to look respectful and calm. No matter what, for the future of the academy, he had to take this step. He bowed deeply, performing a respectful salute toward the tightly closed door, his voice humble. Mu Lao, Xiao requests an audience regarding an urgent matter. There was no response. Only the golden radiance overflowing from the crack of the door seemed to become a bit more dazzling. Time ticked by second, and every second was a torment for Yan Xiao. After a long while, a voice came from inside. Come in. Yan Xiao trembled all over, not daring to dawdle, and hurriedly pushed the door open to walk inside. The furnishings inside the secret room were extremely simple, but at this moment all the items were dyed with a layer of dazzling golden radiance. In the center of that light sat a young man dressed in white cross-legged, his entire person radiating a transcendent demeanor of supremacy over heaven and earth. Bright Nguyen slowly opened his eyes, those golden eyes devoid of the slightest emotion. You had best pray that what you are here to discuss is truly an urgent matter. His voice was very soft, yet it made Yan Xiao feel a bone-piercing chill. If you interrupt my thoughts because of some trivial matters, even if you are old Nguyen's disciple, I will not spare you lightly. Yan Xiao's heart shrank violently, and he hurriedly lowered his head, not daring to look directly into the other party's gaze, speaking hurriedly. Mu Lao, if it were not an absolute last resort, Xiao would never dare to disturb your quiet cultivation, but this matter truly concerns the safety of the entire continent, and even more directly relates to the survival of Shrek Academy's 10,000-year foundation. Bright Nguyen's gaze fluctuated slightly, but that was all. He still looked at Yan Xiao indifferently, waiting for what came next. Yan Xiao swallowed a mouthful of saliva, sorted out his thoughts, and reported in detail everything that had happened over the past 2 days by the mysterious stream outside Shrek City. During this account, Yan Xiao spoke extremely fast and with clear logic. Finally, his tone shifted, leading the focus to the greatest hidden danger. That beast god DTN in the core circle of the Stardo Great Forest is currently recognized as the head of the top 10 fierce beasts in the world, with cultivation reaching as high as 890,000 years. DTN has always regarded us humans as a thorn in his eye, constantly wanting to revive the spirit beast race. If he were to learn of the existence of that river, and it splits into 3. Speaking up to this point, Yan Xiao's voice began to tremble. With 3 DTNs descending upon Shrek City simultaneously, the destruction of the entire Shrek Academy would be a matter of a snap of the fingers, and humanity might even be reduced to flesh and blood food for spirit beasts. Mulao, we must master that river before the spirit beasts do. Otherwise, humanity will become extinct. Yan Xiaojia's words could be described as pouring out his heart and lungs, analyzing the pros and cons thoroughly. However, Bright Nguyen did not smash the table and stand up as Yan Xiaojia had anticipated, nor did he show the slightest bit of solemnity. After a long while, he let out a light chuckle. Finished speaking. Yan Xiaojia was stunned, a flash of astonishment crossing his eyes. Mulao, what is this meaning of yours? Yan Xiaojia, your memory seems not so good. Bright Nguyen slowly stood up. He stood with his hands behind his back, his gaze falling upon Yan Xiaojia, his tone indifferent. I remember I told you very clearly. I only have one condition. Only when Shrek Academy faces a catastrophic disaster will I make a move. He withdrew his gaze and looked down condescendingly at Yan Xiaojia. Now, I ask you, is Shrek Academy still here? Are the students outside all dead? This. Yan Xiaojia opened his mouth, his face pale. The academy is naturally still here, but since it is still here, and doing well, what did you come looking for me for? Bright Nguyen impatiently interrupted him, his voice exuding a high and mighty coldness. The so-called threats, the so-called speculations, are merely groundless fears generated by you weaklings out of incompetence. But Mulao. Yan Xiaojia grew anxious and took a step forward. This is a disaster with an extremely high probability of occurring. If we really wait for the 3 DTNs to come knocking on our doors, everything will be too late. By then, living beings will be plunged into misery, and regret will be too late. Late. Bright Nguyen acted as if he had heard something extremely interesting, the mocking arc at the corners of his mouth gradually expanding until it turned into an extremely arrogant and extremely confident smile. He suddenly turned around, a power dominating the world aura erupting explosively, shocking Yan Xiaojia's blood to surge and forcing him to take several steps back before barely steadying himself. If that so-called beast god DTN truly splits into 3 and truly possesses the so-called divine power. A flash of absolute confidence and interest crossed Bright Nguyen's eyes. Then that wouldn't fail to be an interesting matter. Ever since I achieved limit Douluo at the age of 20, this world has been invincible to me. The strong in this world are all like worthless dogs in my eyes, vulnerable to a single blow. If a few fellows who make me feel tricky could truly appear in this world, I would really want to have a proper bout with them. Yan Xiaojia was completely dumbfounded. Madman. This was simply a complete and utter madman. Actually anticipating the enemy getting stronger. Actually regarding the safety of the academy and even all of humanity as child's play. Yan Xiaojia slowly lowered his head, his fists clenched tightly inside his sleeves, his fingernails digging deep into his palms, unaware even his blood seeped out. His heart was filled with disappointment, anger, and resentment. If it were teacher, if it were the real Mulao, if it were that old man who exhausted his last drop of effort for the academy, he would absolutely never say such bastardly words. This guy is just a bastard, a coward. The next moment, a flash of golden light passed, and a palm clamped around his neck like an iron pincer. Yan Xiaojia was forcefully fixed in midair by that hand, his feet leaving the ground. Bright Nguyen held Yan Xiaojia with one hand, his handsome face drawing very close, so close that Yan Xiaojia could clearly see the disheveled version of himself reflected in his eyes. I do not like being discussed and cursed in people's hearts. Bright Nguyen's voice was very soft, as if everything Yan Xiaojia thought in his heart had been heard. Mind reading. How could this be possible? You say I'm a bastard, a coward. The strength in Bright Nguyen's hand increased slightly. Cough, 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 Mulao, spare my life. Yan Xiaojia opened his mouth to beg for mercy in extreme discomfort. HMPH. Bright Nguyen let out a cold snort and casually tossed him away. Bang. Yan Xiaojia was heavily smashed against the hard wall, producing a dull thud. He slid to the ground, clutching his neck and coughing violently, greedily taking in huge breaths of air, tears and snot streaming down uncontrollably, wretched to the extreme. Cough, 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 cough. Hoo. Yan Xiaojia's entire body was already soaked in cold sweat, his body trembling uncontrollably. Too strong, truly too strong. Against that kind of power, he was completely unable to resist. If there is a next time, I will kill you. Bright Nguyen didn't even glance at Yan Xiaojia on the ground. Scram. Yan Xiaojia trembled all over, scrambling to his feet, not daring to stay even a fraction of a percent longer, and not even daring to hold half a sentence of resentment in his heart anymore. He ran out in a wretched state. If this goes on, where will Shrek Academy go from here? Shrek Academy, will it really be destroyed in his own hands? Chapter 41, Shrek must make a comeback against the odds. Shrek Academy, Sea God's Pavilion Meeting Room. Creak. The heavy wooden door was pushed open. Yan Xiaojia walked in, and everyone's gazes instantly converged on him. He didn't speak, just silently walked over to his own seat and sat down. Xiaojia. Elder Zwang's brow furrowed slightly, as he noticed that Yan Xiaojia's state was not quite right. How is the situation? What did that person say? Yan Xiaojia raised his head, his gaze sweeping across the familiar faces present, and finally he shook his head bitterly. He is unwilling to make a move. The simple 5 words were like a heavy hammer, fiercely smashing into everyone's hearts. The meeting room fell into a dead silence. Although before Yan Xiaojia returned, they already had a bad premonition in their hearts, when this fact was truly placed before them, that sense of despair still pressed down so hard that people could hardly breathe. If that river is not grasped in hand, if it is not curbed, once the spirit beast army presses on the border, once that beast god DTN truly grasps that power. For Shrek Academy and Douluo continent, it will be a disastrous catastrophe. Qian Duoduo looked at Yan Xiaojia. Xiaojia, did you not explain the stakes clearly? That is beast god DTN. That is an 890,000-year fierce beast. Once he succeeds, even that person might not necessarily have victory in hand, right? Did you not tell him that if he doesn't make a move now, it will be too late to make a move later? It must be that Yan Xiaojia didn't explain it clearly, or the method of expression was wrong. Yan Xiaojia suddenly raised his head, his eyes bloodshot, staring intently at Qian Duoduo. The murderous aura that erupted at that instant actually made even Qian Duoduo freeze for a moment. Explain clearly. Yan Xiaojia's voice was hoarse. I told him all the stakes, all the consequences, and the terrifying scenes of the 3 DTNs potentially descending, one by one, in detail. And the result? Yan Xiaojia let out a bitter laugh. He doesn't care at all. He is even looking forward to DTN becoming stronger so he can stretch his muscles. If you think I didn't explain clearly enough, if you think you have the ability to persuade that lord. Yan Xiaojia looked coldly at Qian Duoduo. Then you can go yourself. Go and try it yourself. Yan Xiaozhe's words were extremely heavy, carrying an undisguised fiery anger in his tone. He was truly scared, and truly tired. The meeting room fell into silence once again. This silence was even more oppressive than before. Counting on that person to make a move was clearly impossible. Sigh. An aged sigh rang out. Elder Zhuang slowly put down the teacup in his hand. Since there's no way to control this river, since that person is unwilling to make a move. Elder Zhuang's gaze was profound as he slowly swept his gaze across everyone. Then we will change our train of thought. Make good use of this river. Everyone's gaze is cast towards Elder Zhuang one after another. Elder Zhuang pointed to the map spread out on the table, his finger tracing across the river outside Shrek City. This river does not exist in isolation, it is living water. Its flow direction is clear. Elder Zhuang's voice was steady and powerful. Since we cannot stop spirit beasts from utilizing it, we must utilize it better and faster than the spirit beasts. After listening, a glimmer of light lit up in everyone's eyes. That's right. Since we cannot block it, then we snatch it. Rather than sitting here and waiting for death, it is better to take the initiative and use the power of that river to enhance the strength of Shrek Academy. However, Elder Song frowned, bringing up a point of concern. There's one major problem now. That is, the people coming out of the river are not easy to control. Elder Song glanced in the direction of the upper floor, her meaning self-evident. Bright Nguyen is a living example. If the Academy's powerhouses are sent to replicate, and those who come out are all such arrogant people, or even beings hostile to the Academy, wouldn't that be welcoming wolves into the house? This is indeed a hidden danger. Elder Zhuang nodded. However, we have no choice. Risk and opportunity coexist. If we stand still, once the spirit beast army presses on the border, we won't even have a chance to resist. Yan Xiao had already calmed his emotions at this moment. He pondered for a moment, and a trace of resolve flashed in his eyes. Elder Zhuang is right. We cannot give up eating for fear of choking. Yan Xiao stood up, his gaze becoming firm. I plan to first bring those with potential in the Academy over to try it out. Their strength is still weak. Even if the guy who appears has a bad personality, I have the confidence to take them down directly. Yan Xiao looked at Qian Duoduo. This time the two of us will lead the team. I will go notify Ma Xiaotao, Ling Luokan, and Dai Yuang. You pick a few good saplings on your side too. Although Qian Duoduo had argued with Yan Xiao just now, when facing matters of great principle, he never wavered. All right. I will absolutely not let those kids get into trouble. Since the policy was set, everyone no longer hesitated and immediately acted separately. Shrek Academy, Inner Court. Yan Xiao quickly summoned Ma Xiaotao, Ling Luokan, and Dai Yuang to his office. As soon as the three entered the door, they felt that the atmosphere was not quite right. Teacher, has something happened? Ma Xiaotao had a direct temperament and couldn't help asking. Yan Xiao looked at this most proud disciple of his heart filled with mixed emotions. If possible, he really didn't want these kids to take risks. But he had no choice. Xiaotao, Yuang, Luokan. Yan Xiao's voice was low. The academy is now facing an unprecedented crisis. He didn't tell the whole story about Bright Nguyen, only simply explaining the magic and danger of that river as well as the threat that spirit beasts might bring. We need strength, enough strength to protect our Shrek Academy and protect the entire Douluo continent. Xuanzi's incident was an accident. Next, Dean Qian and I will lead you there. As long as I still have a breath left, I will never let anything happen to you. Yan Xiao had already made things very clear. Once the spirit beast army presses on the border, Shrek Academy has no way to stop it. As for Bright Nguyen, Yan Xiao didn't believe he could stop 3 DTNs. Teacher, I will go. Ma Xiaotao was the first to speak, her red hair fluttering, flames burning in her eyes. Since the captain said so, Dai Yuang and Ling Luokan could only nod, thinking that if the spirit beast army were to press on the border, at least they could still put up a little struggle. And since Xuanzi was not leading the team, Yan Xiao and Qian Duoduo were still relatively reliable. Yan Xiao looked at them, his eye sockets slightly warm, and heavily patted their shoulders. Good children. Qian Duoduo's mobilization was much simpler and more direct. He found Hikaidu and level 8 Soul Tool Master Fan Yu who were busy in the laboratory and explained the situation to them. Then, Qian Duoduo found Beibei, Tang Ya, Shu Sanqi, and Zhang Nanan. Beibei was Nguyen's great-grandson. Qian Duoduo didn't want Beibei to take risks, but Beibei's talent and state of mind were both top-notch, and Shrek Academy needed stronger power, so Beibei could not be missing. Half an hour later. Shrek Academy entrance. The two teams converged. Yan Xiao and Qian Duoduo stood at the very front of the team. Behind them were young yet solemn faces. Let's go. Yan Xiao let out a low shout. The group flickered, turning into streams of light as they sped towards the mysterious river outside the city. Unlike the atmosphere of the previous departure, this time the atmosphere was unprecedentedly heavy. Chapter 42, Tang San's Scheme, Avatar Descends to the Lower Realm. God Realm, See God's Palace. Bang. The palace doors were tightly shut. Tang San stood in the center of the main hall, his expression terrifyingly gloomy. Big trouble. Just moments ago, the God of Destruction openly launched an attack during the committee meeting. Although Tang San always did things impeccably and had wiped away all traces completely, facing the questioning of the God of Destruction, he could have originally responded calmly and even counterattacked. The worst part was Xiao Wu. When the God of Destruction produced those ambiguous pieces of evidence, Xiao Wu failed to control her facial expressions. Xiao Wu knew that she had interfered with the lower realm. Although it was just a change in expression, Xiao Qi was indeed on the Douluo continent. To clear himself of suspicion, the God of Destruction made him spend most of his time under the watchful eyes of the God Realm Committee, or watched over him all day long. Tang San took a deep breath, the fury in his eyes almost bursting out. Destruction. He whispered the name, his finger joints popping audibly. Not following the rules. In this God Realm, am I the only law enforcement God who does not follow the rules of the God Realm? I only interfered a little bit. For the future of the Douluo continent and the continuation of the God Realm, what did I do wrong? On the contrary, it is you, Destruction, who thinks about expanding the God Realm all day long. That is truly the way to court death. Why must you stubbornly target me, the Asura God? Tang San cursed the God of Destruction inwardly. But he had no time to be angry now. Using the excuse of returning to the Sea God's palace to fetch some things, he had managed to secure this brief moment of solitude. This was also his last chance to inspect the Douluo continent in the near future. Once he stepped out of this door, the eyes and ears of the God of Destruction would stick to him like dogskin plaster. Tang San walked deep into the main hall and waved his hand. A curtain of water appeared out of thin air. The images shifted, and the scenery of the Douluo continent gradually became clear. However, the moment Tang San saw the situation in the lower realm clearly, his pupils suddenly constricted. How is this possible? He unconsciously took half a step back, and his usually calm face was now filled with shock. Chaos. Utter chaos. It was simply a complete mess. Within the water curtain, above the imperial palace of the Sun Moon Empire, a thick layer of blood clouds actually shrouded the area. The Holy Spirit cult, that evil cult that originally could only linger on its last breath in dark corners, had now openly controlled the imperial court of the Sun Moon Empire and even directly taken over the army. Tens of thousands of spirit tool cannon barrels were aimed directly at the direction of the original Douluo continent, and amidst that torrent of steel were countless evil soul masters with gloomy auras. Mad. Tang San gritted his teeth. These madmen actually planned to declare war on the entire Douluo continent. Who gave them the guts? Who gave them the power? His gaze moved quickly, sweeping past the Stardo Great Forest. That place was equally restless. Beast tides surged, and countless spirit beasts were gathering by that small river, which made Tang San feel his scalp go numb. Tang San's gaze finally locked onto that ordinary-looking river outside Shrek City. People from Shrek Academy were rushing over there. Yan Chaoj, Qian Duoduo, and a group of young children. Shrek Academy also wanted to use this river to create powerful combat strength. Just because of a river. Just because of this river that appeared out of nowhere, his layout of 10,000 years and his meticulously planned chess game were blown to pieces. Tang San was truly unhappy. Right now, the three sons of destiny were still in the Sun Moon Empire. The Sun Moon Empire ruled by the Holy Spirit cult could be said to be full of dangers. If he wasn't careful and the son of destiny he selected died, what would he do? No. The Douluo continent would definitely not let the son of destiny encounter danger. Tang San quickly cleared away the distracting thoughts in his heart. Even though things were chaotic now, he still had to arrange his layout. He must arrange it, and try his best to keep the situation in his own hands. First was to contact Dumming and Erming. Dumming and Erming were drinking tea when they suddenly received a transmission from Tang San. Dumming, Erming. I have an important task to give you. Listen well, immediately arrange for Shaoqi and the others to head to the Sun Moon Empire. Both Dumming and Erming frowned tightly, not knowing why Tang San made this decision. You must know that previously, the attitude Tang San displayed toward the Sun Moon Empire was not very friendly. Why is this? Dumming asked uncomprehendingly. Do as I say. Tang San's voice turned a bit colder, without giving too much explanation. Just send Shaoqi and the others into the Sun Moon Royal Soul Engineering Academy. Remember, do it covertly and do not expose their identities. Hearing Tang San say this, Dumming and Erming could only comply. Ever since Tang San became a god, his attitude toward them had become worse and worse. The Sun Moon Empire. Go and tell Shaoqi and the others about this matter. Dumming looked at Erming aside and spoke. ... Cutting off the communication, Tang San slowly exhaled a breath of foul air. Although that place was ruled by the Holy Spirit cult, the Son of Destiny was fine. How could his three daughters be in trouble? The biggest problem was indeed that river. As long as that river existed, then, he needn't think about playing his chess game properly. Moreover, the surveillance by the god of destruction was about to begin. In the future, wanting to directly observe the lower realm like this would be almost impossible. Tang San's eyes gradually deepened. Having already plotted for 10,000 years, finally waiting for a Son of Destiny, and finally being able to completely capture the consciousness of the Douluo plane, he would never let go so easily. Now there was still one method that allowed him to intervene in the lower realm, and that was to use his own avatar. Although his strength would be much weaker, after all, this was still his own avatar, possessing all of his memories, and he could also add some extra buffs to his avatar. At least, dealing with those changes in the lower realm would be a breeze. As for the backing of his avatar, Tang San had already chosen it, and that was Shrek Academy. It should be said that it could only be Shrek Academy. The Sun Moon Empire side had the Holy Spirit cult, and the brains of the evil soul masters were all abnormal. Tang San did not intend to let his avatar take risks. After all, his avatar still shouldered the heavy responsibility of saving the Douluo continent. As for his daughters, they certainly wouldn't be in danger. After all, in Tang San's own arrangement, his daughters would walk together with the Son of Destiny, and the dangers they experienced were nothing more than things he created himself. A drop of fresh blood quickly appeared on Tang San's index finger. Under Tang San's control, this drop of fresh blood gradually transformed into the appearance of his 12-year-old self. With a flash of golden light, Tang San also placed a portion of his divine sense into this body. This divine sense contained a god strike, which was used for self-preservation. Unfortunately, the body was too frail and could only store a single chance of use. Unless absolutely necessary, he would never use it. Tang San believed that with his intelligence and wisdom, he would definitely not need to use this move. Tang San sent his avatar to the lower realm, then walked out the door, just in time to see the god of destruction walking over. The items have been gathered, and I am preparing to head over right now. Tang San chuckled softly. Merely a god of destruction, did he think he could stop him just like this? Once he mastered the Douluo continent, the very first person he would settle accounts with would be you. Chapter 43, Spirit Hall Disciple, Tang Yin reports for duty. Douluo continent, Sunset Forest. Mottled light and shadows danced through the forest, and the humid air was filled with a unique mixture of vegetation and earth. This was a relatively safe spirit hunting area on the continent. Most of the spirit beasts on the outer perimeter were weak. Only in the deepest parts, near the forbidden land of the ice and fire Yin Yang Well, was it rarely visited due to the deterrence of its terrifying poisonous formation and powerful plant spirit beasts. Space warped slightly. A figure silently appeared within this dense forest. He looked like a young boy of 12 or 13, with blue hair and blue eyes and a handsome face, yet deep within those eyes, which should have been pure, lurked a depth and scrutiny unfitting for his age. It was Tang San's divine consciousness avatar. Things are going fairly smoothly. He murmured to himself, then with a thought, he began to examine this brand new body. A flash of light crossed his right palm, and a stalk of blue-silver grass, entirely azure and covered in golden patterns, emerged, exuding a noble and majestic aura of life. Blue-silver emperor. On his left hand, a small, ink-black hammer condensed into shape. The handle was not long, but the hammerhead was covered in ferocious patterns, and an incomparable, overbearing sense of power rushed toward him. Clear sky hammer. Immediately afterward, light and shadow intertwined behind him, and two even more powerful spirit phantoms slowly rose. A golden trident, its shaft was magnificent, and although it was far from having the terrifying weight of 136,000 caddies like the original body, its vast divine might still made one's heart palpitate. The other was a blood-colored giant sword with a wide blade, upon which countless resentful souls seemed to wail. The aura of slaughter and judgment it emitted was enough to freeze the soul of any living creature. A weakened version of the sea god trident and the Asura god sword. Quadruple spirits. At the same time, his 4 spirits each had 2 yellow spirit rings, both of which were the most suitable spirit rings for his spirits and possessed decent spirit abilities. These spirit rings were growth-type spirit rings simulated by his divine force. As long as this avatar's strength continued to increase, the age of the spirit rings would also break through their limits and advance triumphantly all the way. Feeling the surging spirit power of innate level 20 within his body in this luxurious top-tier configuration, the corner of Tang San's mouth finally curved into an irrepressible arc of confidence. In his past life, he proceeded with caution at every step, needing to risk his life and calculate meticulously every time he acquired a spirit ring. In this life, he had never fought such a wealthy battle before. Starting with a royal flush right off the bat, how could he possibly lose? Invincible. Tang San gently uttered these 2 words, his eyes flashing with the light of controlling everything. Next, the target was clear, the ice and fire yin-yang well. The immortal herbs there were the best supplements for him to quickly enhance his strength and make up for the foundation of this avatar. At the same time, he could use the things there to make hidden weapons to protect his life. Originally, they were prepared for the Son of Destiny, but now, he needed them even more. If possible, Tang San would snatch away the luck that rightfully belonged to the Son of Destiny, allowing this avatar of his to become the new Son of Destiny. It was just a pity, the difficulty was immense. Unless it was absolutely necessary, it was better not to take this step. However, just as he sorted out his thoughts and intended to take a step forward, an aura as vast as a mountain descended from the sky, locking onto his position tightly. Tang San's pupils shrank violently. The next second, a figure silently landed in front of him, blocking his path. The newcomer wore a simple gray robe and had a tall and robust figure. His full head of white hair was combed meticulously, and his face carried an aura of compassion for all living things. He did not release any spirit power, but merely by standing there and gazing quietly at Tang San, he brought an indescribable, terrifying sense of oppression to Tang San. Righteous Xuanzi. How could he be here? Tang San's heart skipped a beat. Righteous Xuanzi was an unexpected turn of events. Tang San had thought this fellow was merely a minor character and hadn't paid him much attention, yet he never expected this guy to appear in the Sunset Forest. Tang San secretly thought it was bad. Even if his avatar's talent defied the heavens, it hadn't grown up yet. Facing an absolute gap in strength, he was nothing more than a slightly stronger ant. A head-on collision was completely out of the question. Moreover, Tang San did not intend to use that divine consciousness attack too quickly. His brain operated at high speed. Tang San instantly reined in all his arrogance, putting on a respectful yet somewhat cowardly expression, and bowed deeply toward Xuanzi. This junior inadvertently broke into Senior's place of quiet cultivation. I have caused much offense and will leave right away. He behaved extremely humbly, putting his posture very low, attempting to muddle through with this. Having spoken, he cautiously prepared to walk around from the side. But the moment he moved, a large hand that seemed slow but was actually as fast as lightning landed on his shoulder. That palm was withered and powerful, like an iron pincer, gripping him firmly so that he couldn't move a single inch. Tang San's heart sank, but his face still maintained an unanswerable and unarrogant composure. He slowly raised his head, looked at Xuanzi, and asked with feigned confusion. Senior, is there anything else you need? This script, why does it look a bit familiar? Sunset Forest, the ice and fire yin-yang well, the suddenly appearing old freak. Isn't this just a replica of when he encountered the old poisoned Dugu bow back then? A trace of absurdity flashed through Tang San's mind. He only hoped that this so-called righteous Xuanzi wouldn't be as unreasonable as Dugu Bo, otherwise, his chessboard with this perfect start would probably be overturned by someone before he even placed a single piece. He was already prepared to use his divine consciousness. Xuanzi did not answer immediately. Those deep eyes merely looked him up and down from head to toe, as if wanting to see right through him inside and out. After a long while, he slowly spoke, his voice hoarse and heavy. Just now, this old man sensed the aura of your spirit. Quadruple spirits, innate full spirit power level 20. Not bad, very good. In Xuanzi's clear eyes, a trace of undisguised appreciation unexpectedly leaked out. You are qualified to become this old man's disciple. Changing the subject, he directly threw out a proposal that took Tang San completely by surprise. Would you be willing to take me as your master? What? Tang San was stunned. The countless ways to escape and methods of response he had prepared instantly stuck in his brain. Taking a master. This righteous Xuanzi came out of that small river, and his strength was countless times more powerful than an ordinary Xuanzi. Although his experiences were unknown, on the current Douluo continent, righteous Xuanzi was still someone who could command respect. He was even more formidable than Duming and Erming. His avatar had just arrived and was currently lacking a powerful backing to provide shelter. With such a teacher, his subsequent layouts would be much easier. This was simply someone sending a pillow when he was sleepy. Wild joy instantly surged into his heart, but Tang San's face did not reveal a trace of it. Instead, he feigned a look of being flattered and incredulous, which finally transformed into resolute excitement. Without the slightest hesitation, his knees went soft, and he directly knelt on the ground, kowtowing respectfully 3 times to Xuanzi. Disciple Tang Yin greets master. He decisively used the pseudonym he had used before ascending to the god realm. Looking at the youth kneeling on the ground, Xuanzi nodded in satisfaction, an extremely rare smile appearing on his solemn face. Very good. Righteous Xuanzi slightly nodded. From now on, you are a disciple of my Spirit Hall. SP, Spirit Hall. The excited expression on Tang San's face instantly froze. Wasn't this the organization he destroyed 10,000 years ago? How did it turn around in circles, and after 10,000 years, he became a Spirit Hall disciple? Chapter 44, The Emissary of Justice on the Douluo continent can only be me, Tang San. Spirit Hall. Because of that river or some other reason, has it appeared on the Douluo continent once again? However, after all, he was a supreme god who once stood at the pinnacle of this world and experienced countless storms. Even though his heart was extremely astonished at this moment, the flattered and excited expression on his face did not show the slightest flaw. The stiffness lasted only for a split second. The next second, Tang San perfectly controlled his facial muscles, cleverly transforming that sudden astonishment into confusion and curiosity about the name Spirit Hall. He slowly raised his head, his blue eyes revealing just the right amount of doubt. Teacher, what is Spirit Hall? Perfect acting. Tang San knew very well that his current identity was just an ordinary 12-year-old genius boy, and knowing nothing about the ancient organization that had been destroyed 10,000 years ago was the most normal reaction. Taking the opportunity of this question, he calmly observed Xuanzi's expression, attempting to dig out more valuable information from this teacher's face. Hearing Tang San's question, a nearly fanatical sense of pride appeared on righteous Xuanzi's face. A light flickered in his clean eyes. You don't need to know too much. Righteous Xuanzi spoke. You only need to remember that Spirit Hall is the ultimate guardian of justice and order on this continent. Our strength far exceeds your imagination. We will surely sweep away all evil in the world and bring light and justice once again to this continent that has long been eroded by darkness. Righteous Xuanzi's words were powerful, resonant, and unquestionable. However, listening to these words in Tang San's ears, he only found them ridiculous. Deep within his heart, Tang San let out a sneer full of extreme mockery. Light and justice. 10,000 years ago, wasn't that Spirit Hall, which possessed two god-level powerhouses Jian Runshui and Bibi Dong, ultimately destroyed by his own hands? Today, the highest combat power of this so-called new Spirit Hall is probably this fairly capable Righteous Xuanzi right in front of him, right? Truly pathetic and ridiculous. After I finish utilizing you and drain your value dry, I will strike at Spirit Hall once again. I will clear out the true cancer on the Douluo continent. I will personally and completely erase you imposters, along with your hypocritical justice. In this world, only one emissary of justice like him, Tang San, is enough. As for the others, they are just a bunch of hypocritical pretenders. With countless thoughts turning in his mind, Tang San's face was nevertheless piled with worship and yearning. He nodded heavily, echoing sincerely in tone. Yes, teacher is right. In the future, this disciple will surely strictly follow teacher's teachings and contribute everything to the great cause of Spirit Hall. A series of flattering remarks spoken with such sincere affection and earnestness that even he almost believed them himself. Looking at Tang San's sincere appearance, Righteous Xuanzi nodded with satisfaction. Supreme talent, calm disposition, and knowing how to assess the situation, what he thought deep down didn't matter to him, as long as the attitude was displayed, that was enough. Alright. Righteous Xuanzi changed the subject, his eyes landing on Tang San once again. Tell me, why did you appear alone in this forest? In Righteous Xuanzi's view, Tang San had good talent, so if he intended to hunt a spirit ring, of course he should be accompanied by elders at home. No matter how trashy the Sunset Forest was, it wasn't a place that a two-ring spirit master could easily set foot in. Unless he was an orphan who could only enter the Sunset Forest alone to hunt a spirit ring, or, searching for something. It's coming. Alarm bells rang wildly in Tang San's heart. Of course he was unwilling to state the true purpose of coming to the Sunset Forest to search for the ice and fire Yin Yang well. Are you kidding me? That was his greatest opportunity. The immortal herbs inside could not only help this frail avatar of his lay the most perfect foundation, but were also key materials for making the top hidden weapons of the Tang sect. If he spoke of it, wouldn't all these things belong to Spirit Hall? Impossible. The ice and fire Yin Yang well can only belong to him alone. Tang San's brain spun rapidly, instantly fabricating a seemingly reasonable excuse. A trace of embarrassed distress appeared on his face, and he scratched his head, speaking like an innocent youth. To not hide it from teacher, I heard from an uncle in the village that many years ago, a powerful spirit master perished here, and he left behind a precious spirit bone buried near here. I wanted to come try my luck. After saying this, he also lowered his head with a guilty conscience, vividly portraying the image of a treasure-seeking youth who had not yet experienced much of the world. Hearing this explanation, Righteous Xuanzi was stunned at first, and then let out a sneer. That laughter was filled with undisguised contempt. The look he gave Tang San was like looking at a fool naive beyond saving. Spirit bone. Righteous Xuanzi shook his head, his tone carrying a bit of banter. Child, listen less to the nonsense of those people of unknown origin in the future. In this world, where are there so many huge bargains waiting for you to pick up? That look was like a needle, fiercely stabbing at Tang San's pride as a god king. Very displeased. Tang San was truly very displeased. A mere mortal of the lower realm, how dare he look at me with such a gaze? His fists clenched quietly inside his sleeves, but his face still maintained that awkwardness and sheepishness after his lie was poked through. Endure. Must endure it. No matter what, he must absolutely not expose the location of the ice and fire Yin Yang well. As long as this secret can be kept, what does suffering this little humiliation amount to? Then what is teacher's purpose in coming here? Tang San turned the tables, asking about Righteous Xuanzi's purpose. Righteous Xuanzi put away the banter on his face, and his expression turned serious. This old man has come here for only one purpose. He paused, saying word by word. To search for the ice and fire Yin Yang well. Tang San was stunned. His brain completely crashed at this moment. Righteous Xuanzi, how could he know about the ice and fire Yin Yang well? This is impossible. The ice and fire Yin Yang well is a secret belonging exclusively to him, Tang San. Besides him, absolutely no second person could possibly know. Information regarding the ice and fire Yin Yang well was left by himself only within the Tang sect, intended to scheme against the Son of Destiny, letting the Son of Destiny know of the existence of the ice and fire Yin Yang well. As for anyone else, they completely did not know. Otherwise, not to mention old Mu En and the others, just speaking of Jing Hongchen and Kong Deming of the Sun Moon Empire, relying on those formidable spirit tools, wanting to enter the ice and fire Yin Yang well would be more than enough. No, this won't do. He must stop Righteous Xuanzi from finding the ice and fire Yin Yang well. Tang San forcibly suppressed the shock in his heart, squeezing out an awkward smile that was uglier than crying on his face, and quickly waved his hand, saying, Teacher, you just said not to believe the words spoken by those people of unknown origin. This thing called ice and fire Yin Yang well, who's to say it's not the same as that spirit bone I heard about, and doesn't exist at all? He tried to use Righteous Xuanzi's words just now to refute Righteous Xuanzi, thoroughly muddying the waters on this matter. However, Righteous Xuanzi completely ignored his defense. The ice and fire Yin Yang well truly exists, and is not like that spirit bone of yours. Or could it be that you are actually also searching for the ice and fire Yin Yang well rather than a spirit bone? Righteous Xuanzi changed the subject, staring fixedly at Tang San with those eyes. Damn, how could this old fellow be so certain? Tang San cursed inwardly that things were bad. However, the expression on his face still did not change. This disciple has completely no idea what the ice and fire Yin Yang well is. Chapter 45. If the Holy Spirit cult doesn't belong to me, I don't mind destroying it. Sun Moon Empire, Ming Capital. Deep within an unassuming residence, inside a dim room, two figures sat opposite each other. There were no lights on in the room, only the pale moonlight filtering through the window lattice illuminated their distinctly different silhouettes. One of them was an old man. He had a tall and upright figure, and a head of neat silver hair that emitted a soft luster under the moonlight, meticulously combed back behind his head. His face was as rosy as an infant's, showing not the slightest trace of the passage of time. Only the two long, snow-white eyebrows hanging down both sides of his cheeks revealed that he was not young. Opposite him was a woman who looked to be in her 40s or 50s. Her face was withered, covered in deep wrinkles, and her hair was gray and disheveled, as if she had lost all vitality. But what was most heart-pounding was the nearly tangible, cold, and fierce evil force on her body, as if she herself was a vicious ghost crawled out from the 9 nether hells, ready to devour people at any time. The old man was the dark holy dragon, Long Xiaoyao. The woman was the death Douluo, Yi Qishui. The two top evil soul masters of the current era, the true controllers of the Holy Spirit cult. Bang. Yi Qishui heavily placed the teacup in her hand onto the table, making a harsh, crisp sound that broke the oppressive silence in the room. In her turbid eyes, a light of tyranny and irritability flickered. The Sun Moon Empire has completely fallen into the hands of the Holy Spirit cult. Her voice was hoarse and dry, like two pieces of sandpaper rubbing together. The court, the army, everything is in the hands of that person named Muzan. The next step is to integrate all spirit tools and declare war on the 3 Douluo empires. For evil soul masters, of course there was nothing unacceptable about this, except that was under the condition that the Holy Spirit cult was in her hands. Now the Holy Spirit cult had changed hands, and her son had become a lackey under Muzan. When mentioning the name Muzan, a flash of extremely complicated expression crossed the eyes of both Long Xiaoyao and Yi Qishui simultaneously. Because that man who called himself Muzan looked simply too much like Muen. But he was also different, the two differed too much. Moreover, in the impressions of both of them, Muen was definitely not someone who would do such a thing. Besides, a rumor seemed to have been passed over from Shrek Academy that Muen was already dead, and the Muen currently at Shrek Academy was not the Muen they knew. Just like this guy named Muzan before them, they merely looked alike. The murderous intent and dark power on Muzan were even fewer and more terrifying than those of evil soul masters like them who had immersed themselves in the evil path for many years. It could definitely not be Muen, and the spirits of the two were also different. That river. Yi Qishui's voice lowered, carrying a trace of uncertainty. According to rumors, that river possesses unimaginable power. As long as one honestly answers the river god's questions, the people who walk in will all become 3, possessing completely different personalities, talents, and experiences, but all of them will become much stronger than their original selves. She looked at Long Xiaoyao. Do you think this Muzan could be Muen walking into that river and splitting apart? Long Xiaoyao put down his teacup and frowned deeply. He was unwilling to believe it, but everything happening now had already exceeded common sense. If a guy named Muzan had originally existed in this world, it would be absolutely impossible for him to remain hidden until now. That strength, that terrifying power, coupled with that face, if displayed, someone would certainly link Muzan and Muen together. Besides, the Sun Moon Empire now strictly guards that small river, clearly harboring a secret. That rumor might actually be true. Long Xiaoyao fell silent. Furthermore, in terms of strength, that Muzan's strength far surpassed the strength of Muen within their cognition. You must know that even when Muen grew old, his strength was not to be underestimated, yet, this Muzan's strength was even stronger than Muen's. The feeling it gave the two of them was that even if the two of them joined forces, it would probably be difficult to gain any advantage. A flash of fierce murderous intent flickered in Yi Qishui's eyes. The Holy Spirit cult must never fall into the hands of an outsider. I have decided to make a move against him and kill this accidental variable. No. Without even thinking, Long Xiaoyao immediately voiced his objection to stop her. His expression became unprecedentedly solemn. He did not want the woman he loved to be hurt, even though Yi Qishui was already different from when they first met back then. Muzan is very strong, and moreover, your Death Pagoda is not yet completely finished. It is not yet a true level 10 spirit tool. If you make a move now, you are definitely not his match. Of course I know. Yi Qishui's reply, however, exceeded Long Xiaoyao's expectations. Far from being consumed by anger, she appeared unusually calm instead. Therefore, she grinned, revealing a crazy and twisted smile. I am also going to turn myself into 3 parts. Even if the other 2, me split off or out of control and even become enemies with me, it is still better than letting things continue to develop like this. The chaos of the Holy Spirit cult is still better than falling into the hands of an outsider. As she spoke, the storage spirit tool on her hand flashed with light. An ordinary wooden basin appeared on the ground between the two of them. Inside the basin was more than half a basin of crystal clear water. That water looked completely ordinary, but Long Xiaoyao's pupils suddenly shrank. Because with his mental force, he was completely unable to perceive the existence of that basin of water. This is taken from that weird river. Yi Qishui explained. Right now, that river has been jointly guarded by people from the Sun Moon Empire's royal family. Although they are all a bunch of trash, but it is still quite troublesome. This basin of water was secretly taken back amidst the chaos a few days ago, when I sensed a familiar evil force appearing by the riverside. The familiar evil force, in her mouth referred precisely to evil Xuanzi. She had seen the scene at that time where evil Xuanzi fought Jing Hongchen and was then kicked into the river by Huo Yuhao and his 2 brothers. Although the abilities of Huo Yuhao and his 2 brothers were not bad, but, to Yi Qishui, this river was obviously even more attractive. I studied it for a long time, but unfortunately, I didn't research anything out of it. Yi Qishui's face was written full of unwillingness. Long Xiaoyao stared at that basin of water, his brows furrowing even deeper. Is just such a basin of water really useful? We will know once we try. A gambler-like madness flickered in Yi Qishui's eyes. She slowly stood up, walked over to the wooden basin, and did not hesitate in the slightest. Long Xiaoyao wanted to stop her just then, thinking of trying it himself so as not to let Yi Qishui take risks, but one of Yi Qishui's feet had already stepped into that basin. Under Long Xiaoyao's shocked gaze, Yi Qishui's entire person actually vanished directly, and the aura on her body instantly vanished completely and cleanly from this room. How could this be? Just a basin of water could make a person disappear. Rumors were rumors after all, but Yi Qishui had truly disappeared right before his eyes at this moment. In his heart, he urgently prayed that Yi Qishui would not run into trouble. Chapter 46. Go turn this world upside down. Splash. A gentle sound of flowing water suddenly rang out without warning in this sealed room. Long Xiaoyao abruptly raised his head. He saw that on the floor where the wooden basin had originally been placed, a babbling stream had appeared at some unknown time. The stream did not know where it originated nor where it flowed, appearing out of thin air as if it had cleaved the entire room into 2 different spatio-temporal dimensions. The river water was crystal clear yet bottomless, exuding an ancient and mysterious aura that transcended all things in the mortal world. In the center of the river, upon a blue stone, a figure was sitting lazily, floating up along with the stone. He held an ordinary bamboo fishing rod in his hand, its line trailing into the water as if he were fishing for something. River god. Long Xiaoyao's heart tightened abruptly, his spirit power instantly surging as he entered the highest state of vigilance. He stared fixedly at the figure on the blue stone, attempting to probe the other's depth. However, his mental force was like a clay ox entering the sea, unable to gain even the slightest bit of feedback before that figure. Inscrutable. Even more terrifying than that man who called himself Muzan. At this very moment, the figure on the bluestone slowly raised his head, those pitch black eyes falling upon Long Xiaoyao. The corners of his mouth curled into an ambiguous arc. Swish. He gave the fishing rod in his hand a gentle lift. Ripples spread across the water's surface as a figure was fished out from the river by him. A woman. The instant he saw that woman clearly, Long Xiaoyao's pupils suddenly constricted to the size of needle tips. That was a peerlessly gorgeous woman who looked to be only in her early 20s, dressed in a pristine white long dress, with dark hair like a waterfall and skin whiter than snow. Her beauty was breathtaking, and every smile and frown was enough to drive any man in the world mad for her. Most importantly, the aura emanating from her body. Pure, warm, and sacred, like the goddess of light descended to the mortal realm, making one unable to resist wanting to worship her. This is young Long Xiaoyao tilde. Lin Feng spoke in a lazy tone carrying a hint of mockery. As the bright Yi Qishui filled with a sacred aura the one you dropped. Long Xiaoyao's body trembled violently. So similar. Too similar. Wasn't this the appearance of that innocent and carefree young girl when he first saw her deep within his memories at the Advanced Spirit Master Academy tournament of the entire continent? At that time, she was just like this, her eyes filled with beautiful yearnings for the world. That was their first meeting, one he could never forget for the rest of his life. For a split second, Long Xiaoyao almost blurted out an admission. But he glanced at that bright Yi Qishui, then thought of the other her who had just stepped into the water basin, her eyes filled with madness and determination. The beauty in memories was, after all, only a memory. He took a deep breath, suppressing the stirring in his heart, and shook his head with difficulty, answering in a hoarse voice. Quote. No, it's not her. Hearing this, a playful smile appeared on Lin Feng's face. Oh. With a flick of his wrist, that bright Yi Qishui dissipated like an illusion, falling back into the river water. Immediately afterward, he raised the fishing rod once more. Swish. This time, the one fished up was still a youthful-looking Yi Qishui. It was still that breathtaking face, but at this moment, her face carried a demonic charm, and she wore a tight-fitting black long dress that perfectly outlined her sultry figure. And what emanated from her body was an aura of evil even more terrifying and pure than the current Yi Qishui. That aura made even Long Xiaoyao feel a chill down his spine. Then, Lin Feng's voice sounded once again. Is this, dark Yi Qishui, the one you dropped? Long Xiaoyao's face turned pale. This Yi Qishui was undoubtedly closer to the her he knew now, and could even be said to be the ultimate magnified version of her inner desires and evil thoughts. But in Long Xiaoyao's mind, however, what surfaced was that trace of vulnerability and reliance that Yi Qishui occasionally revealed when facing him. The dark Yi Qishui, before his eyes, was strong and seductive. But ultimately, she was not the person he loved. Quote. Nor is it her. Long Xiaoyao closed his eyes and gave a negative answer once more. Lin Feng chuckled softly and threw dark Yi Qishui back into the river as well. He raised the fishing rod for the third time. Swish. This time, the one fished up was no longer a young and beautiful woman. Instead, it was an emaciated woman with graying hair. It was precisely the original Yi Qishui who had just disappeared. Whether in age, appearance, or strength, she was far inferior to the previous two. However, the moment Long Xiaoyao saw her, those eyes that had always suppressed their emotions instantly flooded with uncontrollable love and tenderness. Beauty would fade, and youth would not last. But the bonds carved deep within the soul would never change. This was the woman who had accompanied him through 100 years of storms. This was the beloved he would protect with his whole life. Young Long Xiaoyao tilde. Is this Yi Qishui, who is neither young nor pretty and is even quite weak, the one you dropped? Lin Feng's voice carried a hint of inexplicable meaning. This time, Long Xiaoyao did not hesitate in the slightest. He opened his eyes, looking at that most genuine Yi Qishui with an incomparably resolute gaze, and nodded heavily. Yes. It is her. A single word, ringing with resolute force. Hearing this answer, the smile on Lin Feng's face grew even brighter. He snapped his fingers. Very well, to reward your honesty. All three of these Yi Qishui are gifted to you. As soon as those words fell, that mysterious stream and Lin Feng on the bluestone vanished without warning, just as they had when they appeared. At the same time, all three Yi Qishui landed on the floor of the room simultaneously. The original Yi Qishui shook her head, her eyes gradually returning to clarity. The moment bright Yi Qishui and dark Yi Qishui landed, terrifying lights burst forth from their eyes. They moved almost at the same time. Boom. With a deafening roar, the walls of the mansion were instantly torn apart by two completely different terrifying forces. Two figures, one white and one black, rushed into the night sky of Ming capital, instantly disappearing into the horizon. That fleeting, powerful spirit power fluctuation, even if it was just the aftershock, made limit Douluo Long Xiaoyao's heart leap with fright. He blankly stared at the two huge holes blasted open, then looked at the bewildered Yi Qishui beside him, a wry smile inevitably surfacing on his face. Although he hadn't communicated with the other two Yi Qishui yet, based solely on the brief spirit power fluctuations just now, coupled with the comparison between Muzan's personality and Yuan's personality, Long Xiaoyao knew that this bright Yi Qishui and dark Yi Qishui would definitely turn the entire Douluo upside down. He didn't know whether the other two Yi Qishui also possessed spirit tool talent. If they did as well, then this continent would probably usher in an even greater despair. Long Xiaoyao's gaze fell upon Yi Qishui. The madness in Yi Qishui's eyes had not dissipated, and the corners of her mouth curled into an arc. She had also felt the aura from just now. Go, make this damned world as chaotic as possible. Chapter 47. What? I've only been emperor for half a day and I'm already offline. Ming capital, Imperial Palace. Today was the enthronement ceremony of the new emperor, Emperor Shu Tianren. This enthronement ceremony did not go very smoothly. When Emperor Shu Tianren stated that Muzan of the Holy Spirit cult was the one who allowed him to ascend the throne, the voices of opposition were extremely loud. Since when was a nation's emperor appointed by an evil soul master organization? Especially since Emperor Shu Tianren was actually thinking of simultaneously declaring war on the Star Luo Empire, Tianyun Empire, Doling Empire, and Shrek Academy. Was this even a war? Wasn't this just courting death? For a time, voices of opposition rose one after another. However, Zheng Liwu quickly cleared out all the opponents. As long as Kong Deming and Jing Hongchen did not make a move, these fellows were nothing more than worthless dogs in Zheng Liwu's eyes. Therefore, even with many people objecting, Emperor Shu Tianren successfully ascended the throne and became the new emperor of the Sun Moon Empire. It was just, this enthronement was not a time of universal celebration, but rather one stained with blood. At the same time, in the meeting room of the Sun Moon Royal Academy, At this moment, sitting in this place were Jing Hongchen, Kong Deming, and a host of teachers from the Sun Moon Royal Academy. As for the students, there were only the Xiao Hongchen siblings and the three brothers of Huo Yuhao. As for the rest of the students, Jing Hongchen simply told them to stay quietly in the academy to refine spirit tools and not to go out casually. Right now, the atmosphere at the scene was quite heavy, and the expressions of everyone present were quite ugly and complex. Launching a full-scale war against the original three nations of the Douluo continent and Shrek Academy at the same time. The burden this would bring to the Sun Moon Empire was definitely beyond imagination. This wasn't unifying the continent at all, this was plunging everyone into the flames of war and casting the populace into misery. Every single person present was an elite of the empire, and they knew better than anyone what such a war sweeping across the entire continent meant. It would mean countless deaths and the shattering of countless families. In the corner, the sibling pair Xiao Hongchen and Meng Hongchen also had completely pale faces. The time left for them to grow was even less than 2 days. No matter how talented they were, so what? They did not have much time to grow, and, after Emperor Shu Tianren ascended the throne, the declaration of war had already been issued. If they were unwilling, Muzan would step ahead and wash the entire Sun Moon Empire in blood. For them, there was simply no way to resist, even their strongest expert, Kong Deming, had no way to resist. Right now, obeying the arrangements was merely delaying their impending doom. Not far from them, the expressions of the three brothers of Huo Yuhao were similarly unsightly to the extreme. They had witnessed all of this happen with their own eyes, yet they were powerless to do anything. Wasn't this change simply too fast? Not long ago, the three of them were still thinking about studying spirit tool knowledge properly and then working hard to become stronger. As a result, how much time had passed, and a war was actually about to break out. Moreover, all spirit masters had to go to the front lines, even a first-ring spirit master. How cruel. King Yilai, is there any way for us to stop all of this? Huo Yuhao couldn't help asking King Yilai in his spiritual seat. A way, of course there is, but, with your abilities, you can't do it. The best way is to kill that man named Muzan, and then uproot the entire Holy Spirit cult. The war will naturally stop on its own. King Yilai's voice resounded in the spiritual world of the three people, his tone quite natural, as if he didn't feel that what he said was absurd at all. Quote. Hearing this, the three brothers of Huo Yuhao all broke out in cold sweat. What he said was practically absolute truth, but, they were currently only first-ring spirit masters, and they had only become first-ring spirit masters a few days ago. Asking them to defeat a limit Douluo. Furthermore, even Jing Hongchen and Kong Deming couldn't handle this limit Douluo. Asking them to take action was simply overestimating them by too much. It was simply daydreaming. If King Yilai were to do it himself, there would definitely be a way to stop this matter. However, the current King Yilai was merely a wisp of residual soul, and presumably had no way either. All three of them helplessly sighed. Rest assured, this old man will naturally protect you all safely. Venerable Yilai guaranteed, looking quite relaxed even though the Sun Moon Empire was about to erupt into war. Really, is there really no way to stop it? Zan Zuan at the side couldn't help speaking up, breaking the silence of the meeting room. His eyes were filled with unbearable pity. Jing Hongchen and Kong Deming exchanged a glance, and in the end, they could only helplessly shake their heads. The current Sun Moon Empire's military and political power had entirely fallen into the hands of the Holy Spirit cult, and the Holy Spirit cult was controlled by that mysterious Muzan. They simply did not have the strength to contend with it. If they could resolve Muzan, the rest would be easy to talk about. After all, the strong experts in the Holy Spirit cult were just those few people, far less oppressive than the pressure Muzan brought them. The atmosphere inside the meeting room once again fell into a heavy dead silence. Right at this moment. Creak. The door of the meeting room was pushed open. Surrounded by a host of guards, the newly enthroned new emperor, Emperor Shu Tianren, sat in his specially made wheelchair and was pushed in. On his face wore a morbid smile, completely out of place with the heavy atmosphere inside the meeting room. Hall Master Jing, Elder Kong, how are the preparations for the task I assigned to you coming along? Emperor Shu Tianren's voice was sharp and excited. He had finally become emperor. He had finally sat in this dream position. As for the war, as for how many people would die. So what? Anyway, he didn't need to go to the battlefield personally. As long as it allowed him to sit steadily on the throne and enjoy supreme power, even if the entire continent turned into scorched earth, he would not hesitate. Kong Deming and Jing Hongchen stood up, bowed in salute, and replied in a deep voice, Your Majesty, preparations are still underway. Hurry, otherwise, if we delay that person's matters, none of us will have an easy time. Emperor Shu Tianren nodded, but still urged them. After all, even though he had become the new emperor, his life was still in the hands of that person. A flash of viciousness crossed his eyes. If there was a chance, he would definitely eliminate Muzan together. An emperor's life being controlled by others, what kind of talk was that? The war is about to begin. The supply of spirit tools on the front lines must not allow any slackness. Yes, Your Majesty. Everyone chimed in together, yet their voices carried a sense of powerlessness. Emperor Shu Tianren nodded, and was just about to say something more. However, right at this moment. Puff. An extremely muffled and bizarre soft sound rang out without warning. Under the horrified gazes of everyone, Emperor Shu Tianren's head suddenly exploded. Fresh blood splashed onto the surrounding guards, causing them to be stunned for a moment. This new emperor, who had ascended the throne for less than half a day and was still immersed in the sweet dream of the peak of power, couldn't even let out a single miserable scream before abruptly dying on the spot. His headless corpse sat stiffly in the wheelchair, looking incomparably bizarre. Killed with a single blow. Someone launched an attack on the new emperor of the Sun Moon Empire. Moreover, they even used a spirit tool. Chapter 48. The only way to stop the war is to take down Muzan. Dead silence. Everyone widened their eyes, looking in disbelief at the still warm, headless corpse. Time seemed to have frozen for 3 seconds. Your Majesty. A shrill scream pierced the dead silence, and the guards who had followed Emperor Shu Tianren finally reacted. Panic spread instantly. There's an assassin. Protect the scene. Quick, lock down the academy. Search all suspicious personnel. The guards instantly fell into chaos. A portion of them instinctively surrounded the wheelchair, raising the spirit tools in their hands to scan their surroundings vigilantly even though Emperor Shu Tianren was already dead. This action was meaningless while another portion rapidly rushed out of the conference room, attempting to seal off the area. Kong Deming's gaze instantly locked onto the direction from which the attack came. On that sturdy alloy wall, in an inconspicuous corner, a tiny hole as thin as a hair had appeared. That hole pointed precisely to the position where Emperor Shu Tianren had just been. The attack was launched from the outside. Kong Deming's voice was deep and calm, instantly injecting a calming agent into the chaotic scene. He immediately made a judgment, instructing Jing Hongchen and the group of teachers beside him. Hall Master Jing, the two of us will go pursue them. Everyone else, immediately launch an investigation, seal off the scene, and do not let any clues slip by. Although everyone intensely disliked Emperor Shu Tianren and even wished for him to die sooner rather than later. However, a newly ascended emperor had died so inexplicably right inside the Sun Moon Royal Soul Engineering Academy, this matter was bound to blow up into a huge incident. More importantly, Emperor Shu Tianren was a puppet personally propped up by that muson. Now that the puppet was dead, no one could predict what crazy things that moody and terrifyingly powerful man would do. Before his voice faded, the figures of Kong Deming and Jing Hongchen had already transformed into two streaks of light, flying out along that tiny hole. Even if they weren't soul engineers, they themselves were powerhouses at the titled Douluo level, and their speed was so fast that ordinary people couldn't react to it at all. The very moment the two disappeared, ripples also stirred within the mental seas of Huo Yuhao and his two brothers. King Yulai, did you discover anything? Huo Yuhao asked eagerly. At a time like this, the only ones they could rely on were the three powerhouses in their mental sea. HMPH, mere child's play. King Yulai's arrogant voice rang out, filled with disdain. The next second, an incomparably clear, dynamic three-dimensional map was directly branded into the mental worlds of the three. On the map, a small red dot flashing with light was moving away from the academy at an extremely fast speed, heading toward the direction of Ming Capital's slums. The terrain, buildings, and even pedestrians on the streets around the red dot were clearly visible, as if the three of them had activated a god's eye view from 10,000 meters in the air. The three brothers all drew a sharp breath in unison. What kind of ability was this? To actually be able to lock onto the target's position with such precision, and even move in real time. This is an essential means for warfare. King Yulai's voice carried a tone of matter-of-factness. If you can't grasp the enemy's movements at any time, what kind of war are you even fighting? Waiting to be beaten passively. The three were shaken in their hearts and were just about to open their mouths to tell this important intelligence to Kong Deming and Jing Hongchen. But when they raised their heads, where could they still see the figures of the two almighty experts? Oh no, Elder Kong and Hall Master Jing have already chased after them. Huo Yuhao said anxiously. Right at this moment, another gentle and steady voice resounded in their minds. No matter. It was Venerable Yulai. They saw his age-illusory figure gently wave his hand. Rest assured, this old man has his own methods. ... Meanwhile, in the minds of Kong Deming and Jing Hongchen, who were flying rapidly above Ming Capital, a slightly childish yet exceptionally clear voice suddenly rang out. Elder Kong, Hall Master Jing, the enemy is moving toward the southeast direction, the slum area, specific coordinates. Following closely behind, a dynamic map, identical to the one in the minds of Huo Yuhao and his two brothers, was directly presented within the two men's mental perception. That fleeing red dot was marked out crystal clear. The figures of the two men suddenly paused, expressions of shock appearing on their faces. This is mental detection sharing. And the range was so vast, the precision so high. ... Is that Huo Yuhao's voice? Jing Hongchen said somewhat uncertainly. This is my spirit ability, mental detection, it can lock onto the enemy's location. That voice sounded once again to explain everything. Kong Deming and Jing Hongchen exchanged a glance, both seeing deep shock in each other's eyes. They certainly knew that Huo Yuhao possessed a mental attribute body spirit, but this level of mental detection ability, let alone a one-ring spirit master, even a titled Douluo specializing in mental force could definitely not achieve it. Just how many secrets did this child still hide? However, now was not the time to probe deeply. With such precise positioning, the efficiency of their pursuit would undoubtedly be greatly enhanced. Well done, Yuhao, keep it up. Jing Hongchen said approvingly. The two no longer hesitated, immediately adjusting their directions and speeding toward the location where the red dot was. ... Inside the conference room, Huo Yuhao and his two brothers were once again shocked beyond measure by the methods of their two teachers. To actually be able to directly transmit information to titled Douluos far away at the edge of the horizon. This already exceeded the scope of their cognition. They couldn't help thinking in their hearts, if it were them at their peak, just how strong would they be? Perhaps they really could easily stop this war sweeping across the entire continent. Unfortunately, there were no ifs. The gazes of the three ultimately fell back onto that ghastly corpse. A strong smell of blood rushed straight into their nasal cavities, causing their complexions to instantly turn pale. This was the first time they had seen a corpse from such close proximity, and, moreover, dying in such a tragic manner. That dual visual and psychological shock caused their stomachs to turn violently. Fortunately, specialized personnel soon used a white cloth to cover Emperor Shu Tianren's corpse along with the wheelchair, and then quickly cleaned up the bloodstains at the scene. Yet the oppressive atmosphere in the air did not weaken in the slightest. If you are unwilling to participate in this war. Venerable Yulai's voice rang out in the minds of the three. This old man can teleport the three of you to a safe place, far away from this right and wrong. The current you have not yet grown up, aside from throwing your lives away, there is basically no other possibility. Hearing this, Huo Yu let out a sneer. Escape. His voice was very soft, yet it carried a sobriety and ruthlessness incongruous with his age. Right now, where else can we escape to? This war sweeps across the entire continent. Given the Sun Moon Empire's terrifying spirit tool foundation, once the war starts, it will definitely be an all-range indiscriminate bombardment. By then, will there still be any safe place left on the entire continent? Indeed. When flames of war ignited across the entire world, where else could one escape to? The situation was far more pessimistic than they had imagined. Wanting to stop all of this, the only method could only be to kill Muzan. However, this was even harder. It was said that that man possessed the ability to single-handedly wash the entire Sun Moon Empire in blood. Chapter 49, Bright Yi Chishui vs Muzan. High above the Ming capital, two streaks of light pierced the sky, bringing with them a sharp whistling sound. Kong Deming and Jing Hongchen pushed their speeds to the absolute limit, their spirit power erupting without reservation. However, no matter how they pursued, the red dot on the dynamic map in their minds consistently maintained a settled distance from them. They couldn't catch up. Even that distance was being widened bit by bit. Both of their hearts sank simultaneously. This meant that the assassin's speed was actually even higher than theirs. This was not just a soul engineer skilled in long-range sniping, the other party's own strength as a spirit master was also absolutely not to be underestimated. At least, stronger than both of them. A mysterious powerhouse with terrifying strength while also mastering ultra-long-range precise sniping technology. When did such a figure appear in the Sun Moon Empire? Just as the two were filled with shock and uncertainty in their hearts, they abruptly discovered that the red dot that had been moving at high speed suddenly stopped. Did they plunge headfirst into the other's secret base? Or was it blocked by someone? No matter which possibility it was, this was their only chance to catch up to the other party. The two exchanged a glance, no longer hesitating in the slightest, and their spirit power erupted once more, charging at full speed toward the location where the red dot finally stopped. This place was already far away from the main capital and the crowds, and everything around gave people a creepy feeling. The aura here was wrong, with no living people residing, and the surroundings were filled with damaged houses. When Kong Deming and Jing Hongchen arrived, the scene before them caused their hearts to suddenly contract. In the distance, two figures were quietly confronting each other. One of the figures they were extremely familiar with was precisely that man who held the entire Sun Moon Empire in the palm of his hand, Muzan. And the other figure. That was a woman wearing a snow-white holy long dress, with a peerlessly beautiful and picturesque appearance. Her temperament was pure and warm, resembling the goddess of light descended to the mortal realm, making people not dare to look directly at her, yet unable to help wanting to draw closer. It was precisely Bright Yi Qishui who had escaped from that small house. Qishui, join the Holy Spirit cult. Muzan's voice sounded, his tone quite calm, and there were no emotional fluctuations in those eyes whatsoever, issuing an invitation to Bright Yi Qishui. What? Kong Deming and Jing Hongchen's pupils abruptly shrank to the size of needle tips. The mysterious woman who assassinated Emperor Shu Tianren actually knew Muzan. Moreover, looking at the expressions of the two, it seemed like this mysterious woman detested Muzan quite a bit. Was it because of this that she killed Emperor Shu Tianren? However, to directly kill the monarch of a country because of this, she truly had a lot of guts. The two held their breath, silently concealing themselves in the darkness without making any sound. Muzan seemed to have discovered their arrival long ago, yet couldn't even be bothered to give them a glance, his gaze remaining fixed on Bright Yi Qishui. Cut the crap. Bright Yi Qishui's voice was cold and resolute, filled with undisguised disgust. Spirit Hall and you evil soul masters are irreconcilable. As soon as her words fell, a flash of light appeared in her hand, and a uniquely shaped cannon-type spirit tool radiating a soft white light throughout its body appeared out of thin air, its muzzle locked tightly onto Muzan. Kong Deming and Jing Hongchen were both stunned. With their discernment, they could tell at a glance that the cannon-type spirit tool in Bright Yi Qishui's hand was definitely not simple. The spirit power fluctuations flowing over it and the complexity of its internal structure had even surpassed the scope of rank 9. Could it be a rank 10 spirit tool? How is that possible? You must know that looking across the entire Sun Moon Empire, and even the entire Douluo continent, the only currently known rank 10 soul engineer was Kong Deming himself. How did another one pop up now? Moreover, what kind of organization was Spirit Hall? They had never heard of this name before. Several thousand years ago, the Sun Moon continent drifted here from distant seas and collided with the Douluo continent plate. They knew very little about this continent's ancient history. Perhaps this was some hidden ancient organization belonging to the 3 original countries of the Douluo continent. Just as their thoughts were flying, Bright Yi Qishui had already pulled the trigger. Hum. There was no earth-shattering loud noise, only a piercing energy hum. A thumb-sized micro-cannonball, milky white throughout its body, shot forth from the muzzle. Although the cannonball was small, the spirit power fluctuations emitting from it were terrifying to the extreme. Kong Deming's heart twitched violently. He dared to be certain that even if he put on a full set of rank 9 defensive spirit tools, he definitely could not block this single cannonball. The energy it contained was extremely terrifying, far exceeding the power of any spirit tool Kong Deming had ever seen. Even his own proudest works, Kong Deming felt, had no way of comparing with this spirit tool. If this shot could really land on Muzan, perhaps it could really kill this formidable enemy on the spot. A trace of complex light flashed in Kong Deming's eyes. Although it was unclear what background this Bright Yi Qishui who claimed to be from Spirit Hall she had just stated her stance, irreconcilable with evil soul masters. An enemy's enemy was a friend. That milky white cannonball had terrifying and fearless power, and its speed was so fast that the naked eye couldn't capture it. Almost the instant it left the barrel, it crossed the distance between the two and appeared in front of Muzan. Boom. A deafening loud noise finally erupted. The dazzling white light instantly swallowed everything, transforming into a small sun that rose in this place. The terrifying energy shockwave spread wildly in all directions like a tsunami. The surrounding buildings, in front of this power, were like paper paste, instantly torn apart, flattened, and reduced to dust. Fortunately, this area had long been uninhabited, otherwise, the aftermath of this single strike alone would have been enough to cause tens of thousands of casualties. Quick, activate defense. Jing Hongchen roared, and simultaneously activated the rank 9 defensive spirit tools on his body along with Kong Deming. 2 thick energy shields wrapped around them. Even so, under that violent energy impact, the shields emitted an overwhelmed "kacha" sound, as if they would shatter at any moment. The two were shocked in their hearts. This power was simply too strong. The intense light and smoke lasted for a full dozen seconds before slowly dissipating. Kong Deming and Jing Hongchen stared fixedly at the core area of the explosion. Under that level of attack, that Muzan, even if he didn't die, he should have been heavily injured, right? However, when the smoke completely cleared away, the scene before them plunged them into an ice cellar, making their entire bodies ice cold. They saw that Muzan was still quietly standing in his original spot. His footsteps, from beginning to end, had not moved a single fraction. In front of him, that pair of terrifying fleshy wings covered in pitch black scales and exuding an endless evil aura slowly closed together. On them, not even the slightest trace of a scar was left behind. He was completely unharmed. Chapter 50. If you are not willing to join Shrek Academy, I don't mind executing you on the spot. In the Stardew Great Forest, upstream of that mysterious small river, Yan Xiao and Qian Duoduo finally arrived at their destination with the Shrek group. Teacher Wang Yan and Chen Fan and the others had already left earlier, and this place was quite quiet, without even the aura of any spirit beast. At least for now, it could be said to be quite safe. Of course, Yan Xiao did not lower his guard. First, he used his spirit power to perceive the surroundings, and after finding no other auras, he finally cast his gaze upon Ma Xiaotao, his expression extremely solemn and serious. Xiaotao, you go down first. With Xuanzi's bloody lesson right before him, Yan Xiao did not dare to be the slightest bit careless now. Let everyone jump down all at once. What a joke. If any more irrecoverable accidents happened, he, Yan Xiao, would follow in Xuanzi's footsteps and become Shrek Academy's new historical sinner. Yes, teacher. Ma Xiaotao nodded solemnly, without the slightest hesitation, and leapt directly into the clear river water. Plop. Splashes scattered, and ripples spread out. The next second, under the shocked gazes of everyone, Ma Xiaotao's figure and aura instantly vanished completely. It was as if she had been completely erased by the world. This is Qian Duoduo, level 8 soul tool master Fan Yu and his disciple, and the others were all witnessing this bizarre scene with their own eyes for the first time, and the look of shock on their faces was completely unmaskable. This phenomenon that defied common sense had completely subverted their cognition of this world. Even though they had known about this matter long ago, when it truly happened, they still couldn't help but be shocked. Just as everyone's minds were swaying, a figure emerged from the river water without any warning. Lin Feng sat on the blue stone, holding a fishing rod, and came again, and again, and again. His gaze swept across everyone and finally landed on Yan Xiao. "Oh, young Yan Xiao, tilde, is this bright Ma Xiao Tao you dropped?" As his voice fell, he casually waved his hand. A fiery red figure was lifted out of the water by him and thrown onto the riverbank. That was a woman with an extremely hot figure, a fiery red long dress tightly wrapped around her breathtaking curves. Her appearance was identical to Ma Xiao Tao's, but her temperament was completely different. On her body, two kinds of auras were emitted simultaneously, extreme scorching heat and extreme sanctity. Extreme fire and extreme sanctity, this aura was countless times stronger than the original Ma Xiao Tao. That scorching sensation felt as if it was going to ignite the surrounding air, causing Iketu and the others to inwardly panic. They only felt that the spirit power within their bodies began to become restless, it was too terrifying. Yan Xiao's pupils shrank slightly. He did not answer immediately, but only slowly shook his head. "No." Lin Feng nodded. The figure of Ma Xiao Tao on the fishing rod instantly disappeared, and then another figure was fished up by Lin Feng once again. She similarly possessed Ma Xiao Tao's appearance and also had a devilish figure, but she wore a pure black long dress. "Then, is this dark Ma Xiao Tao you dropped?" On her body, there was not the slightest bit of spirit power fluctuation leaking out, yet the feeling she gave people was quite terrifying. Yan Xiao shook his head once more, looking at the dark Ma Xiao Tao before him with a somewhat complex expression. If Ma Xiao Tao's spirit went out of control, would it probably transform in this direction? By then, her intellect would be devoured, and she would degenerate into an evil soul master. Such a thing was something he would never agree to. Also no. Then, is this Ma Xiao Tao whose spirit could go out of control at any time you dropped? This time, what appeared before everyone was the original Ma Xiao Tao. Clearly, among everyone present besides the teacher, Ma Xiao Tao's strength was the strongest, but, after seeing the first two Ma Xiao Taos, everyone couldn't help but feel that this Ma Xiao Tao was somewhat weak. "It's this one." Yan Xiao nodded, but his expression did not relax too much. "To reward your honesty, all three of these are given to you." The corners of Lin Feng's mouth curled up slightly, and then he directly flung all three figures onto the riverbank, tracing a beautiful parabola in the air. Afterwards, his entire person sat on the blue stone and slowly sank beneath the water surface once again, just as if he had never appeared. Meanwhile, Duo's expression was also complex, because from the beginning, he had never felt any aura on Lin Feng. He truly was a quite terrifying fellow. Merely because of Lin Feng, the layout of the entire Douluo continent would undergo changes. Yan Xiao's reaction was very fast. His figure instantly appeared before the dark Ma Xiao Tao wearing the black long dress, and then he directly sealed away all of Ma Xiao Tao's spirit power. Fortunately, although this dark Ma Xiao Tao's strength was more than just a little bit stronger than the original Ma Xiao Tao's, no matter what, Yan Xiao was still a super Douluo, and his strength naturally would not be weaker than a spirit emperor's. His entire set of actions was smooth and flowing, taking less than a second to directly seal dark Ma Xiao Tao's spirit power. This decisiveness made level 8 Soul Tool Master Fan Yu and the others feel a chill in their hearts, and they couldn't help but sigh with deep emotion. As expected of old Mu Wen's disciple, possessing this precious judgment. "You." Dark Ma Xiao Tao's delicate brows furrowed. Feeling the spirit power within her body sealed, a violent killing intent erupted from her eyes, and that murderous gaze stared fixedly at Yan Xiao. On the other side, the original Ma Xiao Tao looked at the other two, herself, her gaze extremely complex. She herself had also turned into three, and there was a feeling of blood connection on her body, but they were completely different. Her mood was also quite complex. No matter which of these two it was, she was not the other party's opponent. Everyone's gazes finally converged upon that bright Ma Xiao Tao whose temperament was sacred and scorching. Yan Xiao took a deep breath and slowly spoke toward bright Ma Xiao Tao. "I represent Shrek Academy in inviting you to join us." Having experienced that matter with Xuanzi, as well as the recent experience of being almost executed on the spot by bright Mu Wen, Yan Xiao's acting style had long since become ruthless. "If you are not willing." A piercing killing intent flashed across his eyes. "Then, to eliminate all possible hidden dangers, I will clear away both of you, completely, and treat it as if today's events never happened." As soon as these words were spoken, the temperature in the air seemed to drop by a few degrees. Duo was also stunned. Is this an attitude for inviting someone? Wouldn't it be a bit too forceful, which might lead to counterproductive results? On bright Ma Xiao Tao's sacred face, a solemn expression appeared, and she was just about to open her mouth to say something. However, right at this moment, splash! The calm river surface was suddenly broken. An enchanting figure wearing a black long dress slowly rose from the river water, and finally hovered above the water surface. Her appearance instantly attracted everyone's gazes. That peerless visage carried a hint of allure, and her gaze landed on the few people from Shrek Academy. It was precisely Dark Yi Chishui. Chapter 51. You guys go first, I will hold the rear. Everyone present, whether teachers or students of Shrek Academy, was completely stunned. Their gazes were fixed firmly on the woman in the black dress hovering above the water surface. How did this woman come out of this small river? Clearly, apart from Ma Xiao Tao, no one else had jumped into the water just now, and shouldn't it have been Lin Feng who appeared after jumping into the water? How did a mysterious woman appear directly instead? If she was an extra bonus after Ma Xiao Tao jumped in, her appearance was completely different. Even if everyone from Shrek was unwilling to admit it, judging by appearance alone, the woman before them left Ma Xiao Tao trailing by countless streets. Yan Xiao's expression was unprecedentedly solemn, and his spirit power perception was going wild with warnings, a piercing pain like needles that clearly told him that the slightly alluring woman before them possessed an aura so powerful it far exceeded the scope of what he could handle. He was definitely no match for her. Moreover, the aura of the woman before them was similar to Dark Ma Xiao Tao, looking just like an evil soul master, and her aura made everyone feel extremely uncomfortable all over. Behind him, the three of them, Ma Xiao Tao, Dai Yuang, and Ling Luokan, were completely dumbfounded. Their faces were plastered with bewilderment and disbelief. The last time they followed Xuanzi to the Stardo Great Forest, they lost a full 4 companions, and even Xuanzi himself had gone missing in order to fight Wang. Now, having finally mustered the courage to come again, how did another top-tier powerhouse pop out, one who made people feel despair just by looking at her? Was their luck really that terrible? Looking at the mysterious powerhouse appearing before them, Duo and level 8 Soul Tool Master Fan Yu had already started preparing to pull out their spirit tools. If Dark Yi Chishui planned to make a further move, they would definitely launch an attack on Dark Yi Chishui. However, how could their little actions escape the notice of Darky Chishui? Hee hee. A light chuckle escaped from Darky Chishui's lips, and that laughter was filled with undisguised mockery. Just based on the few of you, you want to make a move against me? Her gaze drifted lightly over the crowd, her eyes looking just like she was looking at a group of ants struggling in a muddy puddle. Truly overestimating yourselves. If I want to kill you, even a single minute isn't needed. Boom. These flat words were like a heavy hammer, smashing fiercely into everyone's hearts. Everyone's expressions instantly became incomparably ugly. Darky Chishui no longer paid attention to them, her alluring eyes falling with great interest onto Dark Ma Xiaotao, who had been sealed by Yan Xiaoj. She slowly extended her slender, delicate hand and gently beckoned toward Dark Ma Xiaotao's direction. The next second, they saw Dark Ma Xiaotao's figure instantly vanish from the spot, appearing directly in Darky Chishui's grasp. The speed was so fast that the naked eye couldn't capture it at all. Immediately after, Darky Chishui's finger casually tapped on Dark Ma Xiaotao's body. The spirit power seal laid down by Yan Xiaoj was instantly undone by Darky Chishui. The entire process took less than 2 seconds. Unbeatable. At this moment, this was the only thought floating in the minds of everyone from Shrek present. Many thanks to the cult master for the rescue. Dark Ma Xiaotao spoke to Darky Chishui. Just this single sentence once again stirred up monstrous waves in the hearts of everyone from Shrek Academy. These two actually knew each other. But, didn't this Dark Ma Xiaotao just come out from the river? How could this be? Darky Chishui nodded slightly, and then her gaze, carrying a hint of a smile, fell once again upon Yan Xiaoj and the others. But that smile appeared incomparably ice cold to everyone from Shrek Academy. You guys have a lot of nerve. You actually dared to make a move against our Holy Spirit cult's holy maiden. It seems you are all tired of living. Since that's the case, I'll send you on your way and kill all of you. The instant her words fell, a terrifying killing intent erupted explosively from within Darky Chishui's body. Ma Xiaotao and the others felt as if they were pressed down tightly by an invisible giant mountain, making even breathing incomparably difficult, their hearts pounding wildly as if they would burst apart the next second. Is this the coercion of a top-tier powerhouse? Just the killing intent alone made it hard for them to even raise the thought of resisting. They could even be said to be unable to move. They had already been locked down tightly by Darky Chishui's killing intent. There was no escaping. Yan Xiaoja's heart sank to the bottom of the valley. Could it be that the heavens truly wanted to destroy Shrek? If this time, all of their academy's core strength perished here, then Shrek Academy, which had been passed down for 10,000 years, would truly be left with nothing but an empty shell. The Spirit Department Dean, the Soul Guidance Department Dean, along with all the original Shrek 7 devils, plus the promising saplings, all perished. Yan Xiaoj felt he had no face to face old Muan. He had let down his teacher's trust in him and dragged Shrek Academy down to the valley floor. If one could say there was still a sliver of survival last time, this time was completely different from facing Qi Wang last time. Darky Chishui gave him a feeling even stronger than old Muan. If she went all out, not a single person present would have the slightest possibility of escaping. Despair. Endless despair shrouded everyone's hearts. But no matter how desperate, no matter how impossible, he, Yan Xiaoj, as the dean of Shrek's spirit department, would never sit still and await death. Duo. Yan Xiaoj suddenly let out an explosive shout, his voice carrying a trace of unquestionable resoluteness. Immediately take everyone and leave. I will hold the rear. Xiaoj. Qian Duo looked in shock at Yan Xiaoja's resolute back, his eyes instantly turning crimson. How could he not understand what staying behind to hold the rear meant? It meant death. Especially facing an evil soul master with formidable strength, it was definitely an experience worse than death. Go. Yan Xiaoj roared again, his voice hoarse. At least he could carve out a glimmer of a future for Shrek Academy with his broken body. He, truly touching. Darky Chishui let out a pleasant chuckle. She seemed to very much enjoy watching the appearance of these ants struggling in despair. Want to leave, did you ask me? However, Yan Xiaoj no longer paid attention to her. He knew that he only had one chance to strike and must use his full strength to create that sliver of survival for the students. Shrek, everlasting. A solemn chant resounded through the sky. On Yan Xiaoja's body, 9 spirit rings suddenly lit up. Yellow, purple, black. The 9 spirit rings shone with boundless light. Brilliant golden flames surged into the sky, completely swallowing his entire person. A clear and melodious phoenix cry echoed through the clouds. Bright phoenix, spirit possession. No matter how formidable the opponent was, no matter how impossible to defeat, he, Yan Xiaoj, would still be a phoenix bathing in fire. Chapter 52. Want to self-destruct. You don't have that ability yet. Brilliant golden flames blazed fiercely around Yan Xiaoj, making him truly seem like a phoenix reborn through fire. Yan Xiaoja's aura climbed to its peak at this very moment. He was well aware that as a level 95 super Douluo, even though there was a chasm-like difference between him and the woman in the black dress before him, if he held a determination to die and burn his life and spirit power with all his might, he should, at least be able to buy just a little bit of time for the students. When facing a terrifying powerhouse of Darky Chishui's caliber, any fluke or reservation was courting death. Only by giving his all from the very beginning could he possibly exchange for that sliver of negligible vitality. Hurry and leave. Wrapped in the true phoenix fire, Yan Xiaoja's voice became majestic and grand, exploding in everyone's ears once more. Duo, level 8 Soul Tool Master Fan Yu. Yes. Qian Duo and level 8 Soul Tool Master Fan Yu's eyes were bloodshot. They knew this was not the time for hesitation. Soul Guidance radiance flashed on the two of them, instantly erupting with a powerful thrust that swept up all the students, including Hikedu, as well as Bright Ma Xiaotao, who put up not the slightest resistance, and frantically fled in the opposite direction of Darky Chishui. Bright Ma Xiaotao knew very well that the arrival of people from the Holy Spirit cult was definitely not a good thing for her. At this moment, Shrek Academy's protection was her only choice. Teacher. Ma Xiaotao looked back lingeringly at the figure bathed in golden flames, tears uncontrollably streaming from her eyes. That was her teacher. The teacher who had guided her onto the path of a spirit master and had always tried to help her resolve the hidden dangers of her spirit. She wanted to go back. She wanted to fight side by side with her teacher. Xiaotao, don't be impulsive. If we go back, we'll only be a burden. Ling Luoqing grabbed onto her tightly, shaking her head vigorously at her with a slightly trembling voice. We cannot help at all. That's right, they couldn't help. This was the chasm-like gap between strengths. Even though they were 1 in 10,000 genius students of Shrek Academy and absolute outstanding figures among their peers, in front of this level of battle, they didn't even have the qualification to stand at the edge of the battlefield. Watching the figures of the students gradually recede, Yan Xiao felt slightly relieved in his heart. His gaze turned sharp as a blade once more, locking tightly onto that lazy and alluring figure. However, Dark Yi Qishui didn't even glance at Qian Duoduo and the others who were fleeing, as if those people were no different from flying insects in her eyes, capable of being pinched to death at any time. Her gaze looked with amused interest at Yan Xiao, who had transformed into the Bright Phoenix. Oh, Bright Phoenix spirit, it can be considered a decent quality after all. She evaluated unhurriedly, a playful smile curling at the corner of her lips. It's just a pity that you ran into me. As her voice fell, a terrifying aura pitch black as ink suddenly swept out from within her body. A phoenix cry completely different from Yan Xiao's, filled with malevolence and dead silence, resounded across the heavens and earth. Amidst Yan Xiao's terrified gaze, a pitch-black phantom of a phoenix, seemingly condensed from the purest darkness, slowly emerged behind Dark Yi Qishui. This was one of Dark Yi Qishui's spirits, the Abyss Phoenix. If the original Yi Qishui still had the Bright Phoenix, so she might not look like an evil soul master, then once Dark Yi Qishui's two spirits were used, she was properly an evil soul master. The instant that spirit appeared, Yan Xiao felt as though his very soul was trembling. He discovered in terror that the origin of his proud top-tier beast spirit, the Bright Phoenix, was actually producing a fear and sense of submission originating from the depths of its bloodline. His spirit was suppressed. And it was an omnidirectional, crushing absolute suppression. How could that be? You must know that his Bright Phoenix was definitely a top-tier existence within the entire beast spirit lineage of the Douluo continent. Dark Yi Qishui looked at Yan Xiao's incomparably shocked face, the smile at the corner of her lips growing even wider. She slowly raised her hand and waved it casually toward Yan Xiao's direction. Too weak. Boom. A terrifying power impossible to describe in words fiercely blasted onto Yan Xiao's chest. Yan Xiao didn't even have time to react. Those brilliant golden flames, like candlelight blown by a violent gale, instantly extinguished. The radiance of the 9 spirit rings on his body dimmed, and his entire body was directly knocked out of the spirit possession state, flying backward like a kite with a broken string and smashing heavily onto the distant ground, plowing out a deep ravine. Puff. A mouthful of fresh blood spewed wildly from Yan Xiao's mouth, his complexion instantly turning as pale as paper. Too strong. Strong to the point of despair. He hadn't even touched the corner of the opponent's clothes. Just a casual strike completely routed his all-out self. Was his level 95 Super Douluo status fake or what? Yan Xiao looked at the Dark Yi Qishui before him with extreme dread. This woman, who on earth was this woman? Yan Xiao collapsed on the ground, his consciousness even beginning to blur a bit, but his brain was still thinking frantically. He knew that this fellow undoubtedly also came out of that bizarre river. Furthermore, there was a high probability that she was the second. To be able to have such a powerful second person, the main body must also be extremely formidable, at least to limit Douluo existence. In Yan Xiao's mind, the names of known female powerhouses across the Douluo continent flashed by, yet he could never match them with the alluring and evil face before him. Was his life going to end right here? He recalled his entire life, from becoming Nguyen's disciple to becoming the headmaster of Shrek Academy, always working conscientiously and exhausting his heart and soul for the future of the academy. Yet in the end, he was going to die so sloppily right here. Couldn't even strive to win a few seconds of escape time for his colleagues and students. Truly, how pathetic. No. I am unwilling. A trace of ultimate sorrow, indignation, and unwillingness suddenly erupted from the bottom of Yan Xiao's heart. A flash of unprecedented ruthlessness and resolution crossed his eyes. Since he couldn't even buy time, then he would use his old life to exert the final lingering blow. The self-destruction of a level 95 Super Douluo would definitely cause world-destroying damage. Even if he couldn't kill her, he would definitely make her pay a price. Within Yan Xiao's body, terrifying spirit power continuously gathered, forming an energy sphere the size of a walnut. However, at the very split second when he was about to detonate his spirit power, want to self-destruct, you don't have that qualification yet. Dark Yi Qishui chuckled lightly. Even Yan Xiao's self-destruction was viewed by Dark Yi Qishui as no different than children's play. Yan Xiao jerked his head up, only to find that Dark Yi Qishui had appeared before him at some unknown time, a slender, delicate hand already pressed against his crown. An irresistible, terrifying power instantly surged in, forcibly suppressing the spirit power about to riot inside his body. Following that, Dark Yi Qishui picked up the heavily wounded and dying Yan Xiao as if holding a little chick, casually tossing him in the direction of the small river. Splash. Yan Xiao's figure traced a parabola through the air, and accompanied by a crisp sound of entering water, he was directly thrown into that small river. Chapter 53. The chicken-leg Douluo, I'm going to avenge that punch. Meanwhile, border of the Sun Moon Empire. Daming and Erming were leading the three sisters, Wang Dong'er, and traveling unhurriedly toward the direction of Ming capital. However, as soon as they stepped into the national border of the Sun Moon Empire, the brows of the two knit tightly together simultaneously. Something is wrong. The air was permeated with an indescribable sense of oppression, just like the suffocating dullness before a storm arrives. You must know that the two of them, one was a genuine rank 99 limit Douluo, and the other was also a rank 98 super Douluo. Looking across the entire Douluo continent, the existences that could pose a threat to the two brothers of theirs could be counted on one hand. Except for the unfathomable DTN, and that Silver Dragon King, the common master of the spirit beasts who was still in slumber, probably, there was only that newly emerged, Nguyen, of Shrek Academy left. The strength of old Nguyen was already not to be underestimated. Although they had never seen that new bright Nguyen of Shrek Academy, the two knew that they were definitely not that fellow's opponent. Now, this oppressive aura permeating the heaven and earth actually cast a layer of shadow over their hearts. Uncle Daming, Uncle Erming. Within the team, Ling Qi couldn't help but speak up, her delicate brows slightly furrowed. Are we really going to continue heading to the Sun Moon Empire? Just now on the road, we already heard that the newly ascended emperor of the Sun Moon Empire has declared war on the three major empires in Shrek Academy at the same time. The Sun Moon Empire right now is probably the most dangerous place on the entire continent. When a fight breaks out by then, the Sun Moon Empire will definitely become a battlefield. This is an unquestionable matter. Hearing this, Daming's brows furrowed even deeper. Erming's irritable temperament was directly revealed even more. He scratched his head and muttered in a muffled voice. I also think something is wrong. This is simply jumping into a fire pit. If a fight really breaks out, swords and spears have no eyes, let alone protecting the three of them well, even the two brothers of us can barely manage. How about, we just go back directly? This was indeed Erming's true thought. This errand was originally Tang San's instruction, and they had no choice but to obey. But orders are orders. Watching Wang Dong'er and the three sisters fall into danger with their own eyes was also not something they were willing to see. Quiet first. Daming low-voicedly stopped Erming's complaints, but the doubts in his heart were heavier than anyone else's. He couldn't figure it out. Based on Tang San's degree of affection for his daughter, logically speaking, he should definitely not let Wang Dong'er risk herself. Could it be? The most dangerous place is the safest place. Or perhaps, Tang San still left some unknown trump card in the Sun Moon Empire. Just when the two brothers had different thoughts, Wang Dong'er and the team instead appeared the most relaxed. Her pair of pretty, large eyes were curiously observing everything around her. On both sides of the road, tall spirit tool lamps could be seen everywhere. On the flat road surface, small spirit tool cars occasionally drove past, and even in the distant farmland, working agricultural spirit tools could be seen. The popularization degree of spirit tools here was much higher than that of Shrek City or even the cities of any other country. The full sense of technology made her feel endlessly novel. Strange to say, in the past, as long as the three-word spirit tool were mentioned, a sense of rejection and discomfort would inexplicably well up in her heart. But now, that sense of abnormality had been lifted by Ling Qi, and she naturally wanted to take this opportunity to thoroughly look her fill at such a novel thing. In Wang Dong'er's heart, her big dad and second dad possessed very strong strength and were the strongest on the entire Douluo continent, so she didn't worry at all. Eldest brother, stop thinking. Erming truly couldn't hold it in anymore and proposed again. Regardless of what trump card he has, let's go back directly. Returning to the Clear Sky sect, I don't believe anyone can do anything to them. This is surely safer than staying in this ghost place. Quote. Dumming fell into silence, his brows tightly locked, seeming to still be weighing the pros and cons. However, right at this moment. Boom. An energy fluctuation so terrifying that it couldn't be described with words suddenly came from somewhere in the Sun Moon Empire. Even separated by a distant distance of at least over 100 kilometers, the impact aftermath of the energy still blew everyone's clothes rustlingly, making them almost unable to stand steadily. The expressions of Dumming and Erming changed drastically. Almost at the same time, they erupted with their own spirit power, forming a thick barrier to protect the three sisters behind them. Merely the aftermath was this terrifying. Dumming's face was filled with unprecedented solemnity and shock. This level of battle had completely exceeded the scope that the two brothers of them could handle. If they were pulled into it, let alone protecting Wang Dong'er and the three, I'm afraid both brothers of them would have to account for their lives on the spot. This Sun Moon Empire, what on earth happened? What kind of monster on earth appeared? No, ever since seeing that river, Dumming and Erming both knew clearly in their hearts that the layout of this Douluo continent would undergo great changes. But, no one ever said that such a huge change would happen. The two people's strength clearly belonged to top-tier existence on this Douluo continent, but now, they actually felt a deep sense of powerlessness. The battle erupting over there was not something they could participate in. The two brothers of themselves seemed to have also become as weak as ants. Let's go. At this moment, Dumming no longer had the slightest hesitation and made a decisive cut. Return to the Clear Sky sect immediately. Tang San's command was certainly important, but the safety of Wang Dong'er and the three was always the first priority. However, just at the moment he turned around preparing to lead everyone away, a familiar figure appeared at the corner not far away. That was an elderly man with a somewhat hunched figure, holding a greasy chicken leg in his left hand and also carrying a wine gourd in his right hand. He was drinking wine into his mouth while walking, looking slovenly. Who else could it be if not Xuanzi of Shrek Academy? Xuanzi also didn't seem to expect to run into an acquaintance here. He raised his intoxicated-looking eyes, and his gaze happened to intersect with the line of sight of the Titan giant ape Erming in the air. In an instant, the air seemed to have solidified. When enemies meet, their eyes blaze with extra hatred. Xuanzi thought of that punch from Erming in front of Shrek Academy that day, which still remained fresh in his memory to this day. As a dignified veteran elder of the Sea Gods Pavilion of Shrek Academy, he had actually been knocked unconscious by someone with a single punch. It was truly losing face to the extreme. New hatred and old grudges instantly welled up in his heart. Xuanzi hurriedly finished eating the chicken leg in his hand in 2 or 3 bites, and then directly used the gluttonous spirit possession. At that time, he couldn't withstand Erming's punch because his legs were completely crippled, but now, he had completely recovered. Even if there are 2 people, so what? Today, Xuanzi was going to give these 2 fellows a lesson they would never forget for a lifetime. He was a rank 98 Super Douluo, the gluttonous Douluo after all. Unable to beat Muzan, could it be that he couldn't even beat 2 fellows who didn't know where they popped out from? Chapter 54, Titan Giant APS Teodi Divine Ox, shattering the Douluo soul with 1 punch. Teodi Possession. Accompanying a deafening roar, Xuanzi's originally hunched body instantly expanded, his muscles bulging, and ancient, fearsome dark gold patterns emerged on his skin. The terrifying aura belonging to a level 98 Super Douluo burst forth like a breached dam, sweeping in all directions. Yellow, yellow, purple, purple, black, 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 black. 9 spirit rings suddenly rose up. At this moment, Xuanzi was a completely different person from the embarrassed old man at the gate of Shrek Academy last time. Feeling the surging power within his body, an unprecedented confidence filled his heart. Yes, this was the feeling. Last time, he had been careless. Both his legs were ruined, and he hadn't even released his spirit before that guy landed a successful sneak attack with a single punch. But it was different now. With intact legs and his spirit possessed, he was invincible. This old man is going to properly teach you, a fellow who doesn't know the rules, a lesson. Seeing Xuanzi's, I am invincible in the world, appearance, Erming was almost amused. He really couldn't figure out where this nobody got his confidence from. Roar. Erming didn't bother wasting breath and directly activated his Titan Giant Ape spirit possession. A terrifying power of blood and vitality soared into the sky, his body likewise expanding at a speed visible to the naked eye, his firm muscles bulging, brimming with an explosive sense of power. Likewise 9 spirit rings, but when Erming's spirit rings appeared, Xuanzi's full of confidence expression instantly froze on his face. 10,000 year. All of them were spirit rings of over 10,000 years. What kind of fucking monster is this again? Xuanzi's heart surged with stormy waves, but at this point, the arrow was on the string and had to be fired. Having already started the fight, how could there be any reason to back down? Besides, his spirit was the Teodi Divine Ox, a top-tier beast spirit containing a trace of true dragon bloodline. So what if the spirit ring configuration was slightly inferior? The gap in spirit quality was enough to make up for everything. This old man possesses the Teodi Divine Ox spirit. Even if my spirit ring configuration is slightly inferior, I still have nothing to fear. However, looking at Xuanzi's still stubborn appearance, Erming's eyes were filled with disdain and mockery. Teodi Divine Ox. If this guy's spirit were a true Teodi, then maybe he would hold him in higher regard. But a mere mixed breed ox tainted with a bit of dragon bloodline dared to act brazenly in front of a true top-tier spirit beast. It was simply the height of absurdity. 7th spirit ability, martial soul true body. The two activated their strongest states almost simultaneously. Behind Xuanzi, a monster with a sheep's body, eyes under its armpits, tiger teeth and human claws, along with a pair of huge bull horns appeared out of thin air, over 30 meters in length, bursting with intense yellow light, as 9 spirit rings transformed into light rings hovering up and down between those giant horns that were over 5 meters long. Meanwhile, behind Erming, a titan giant ape like a mountain peak appeared, resembling both an ape and a gorilla, with its shoulder height reaching over 7 meters. Die. Xuanzi launched the attack first. The Teoti Divine Ox true body opened its bloody mouth, firing a beam of dark gold energy light violently towards Erming. However, Erming didn't even bother to dodge. Controlling his titan giant ape true body, he raised his fist, heavier and thicker than a mountain, and met it with a simple, straightforward punch. No flashy techniques, only the purest, most ultimate strength. Boom. The moment the dark gold energy beam made contact with the fist, it shattered inch by inch like glass. Devastating and irresistible. Xuanzi's martial soul true body was forcefully shattered in a single move by Erming. PFF. Xuanzi spat out a mouthful of old blood. Before he could react, a giant fist covering the sky rapidly enlarged in his pupils. Bang. Second move. Like a nail, Xuanzi was violently smashed out of midair into the earth by Erming's punch, leaving a human-shaped deep pit, his life or death unknown as he fainted completely. Erming retracted his fist, let out a soft snort, and spat in disdain. What trash dares to think of teaching me a lesson? Xuanzi was a member of Shrek Academy after all. Although he was very annoying, Erming didn't deal a lethal blow, so as not to be found out by the narrow-minded Tang San that he was bullying his Shrek Academy descendants, who might then give him a hard time later. Having settled this small episode, Dumming and Erming were preparing to lead everyone away from this place of trouble immediately. But right at that moment, whoosh, whoosh, whoosh. 11 dark shadows exuding an ominous aura flickered out from all directions, encircling their group. The leader was none other than the Holy Spirit Cult Spice Cult Master, the Death God Douluo, Zhongli Wu. And behind him, all clad in black robes, every single one of them surged with terrifying spirit power at the titled Douluo level. Dumming's brows instantly furrowed tightly into a deep frown. Stepping forward, he shielded Wang Donger and the 3 sisters behind him as his aura as a limit Douluo burst forth without reservation. Roar. A bull's roar echoed through the heavens and earth, as an immensely huge phantom of the sky azure bull python slowly emerged behind him. Level 99, limit Douluo. Zhongli Wu's expression instantly became extremely solemn. Troublesome. In his intelligence, when had 2 such powerful experts ever appeared on the Douluo continent? One with a level 98 Titan Giant Ape spirit, and one with a level 99 Sky Azure Bull Python spirit. Who on earth were these 2 sacred figures? However, precisely because they were unknown top-tier powerhouses, all the more reason they could not be allowed to leave easily. Although he was extremely reluctant to obey that Muzan's orders, right now, it was a task personally assigned by Muzan, to seal off the border of the Sun Moon Empire and intercept all suspicious individuals. If he ruined it, that lunatic really would kill them. Having over 10 people face Dumming and Erming right now might still give them a slight chance of victory, but if they were to face that monster Muzan, even if all of them fought together, they wouldn't have half a chance. That guy was so strong he was simply not human, no, rather, he was an outright monster. Big Dad, Second Dad. Seeing this tense atmosphere, Wang Donger's small face was filled with worry. It's fine. Dumming and Erming looked back at the same time, giving her a reassuring smile. Leave it to us. It was merely a dozen or so titled Douluo, their strength was nothing to scoff at either. Of course, even for the 2 of them, fighting so many titled Douluo at a numerical disadvantage was somewhat strenuous. After all, who among those who could become a titled Douluo wasn't an elite? Of course, if they were all like Xuanzi, it would be much easier to deal with, but the aura on these guys made one very uncomfortable, making it almost impossible to win via normal one-on-one duels. Furthermore, there were soul engineers among them ready to strike, and the spirit tools in their hands caused even Erming to be somewhat wary. A class 9 spirit tool could already threaten him, while class 10 posed a threat even to a limit Douluo. In addition, right now they had 3 people behind them needing protection, and these guys would definitely seize on this weakness. This battle would not be easy. Both Dumming and Erming wore solemn expressions. Chapter 55, How did my wife get purified? Wang Donger, Bing Wuer, and Ling Shi were completely unable to participate in this battle. Among the 3 of them, only Ling Shi was a 3-ring spirit elder, while the other 2 were merely 2-ring spirit grandmasters. On a battlefield where titled Douluo were fighting, the role they could play was utterly negligible. It could even be said to have a negative impact. They were well aware that if they recklessly stepped in, their frail strength would instantly make them priority targets for the evil soul masters, turning them into burdens that held Dumming and Erming back. A sense of helplessness. A deep sense of helplessness lingered in all 3 of their hearts. If only, they had been given a little more time to grow. Right now, they were only equivalent to having just stepped into the cultivation of a spirit master, and hadn't even learned some of the basic cultivation systems yet. Bing Wuer clenched her fists tightly. Her spirit was the ultimate ice, the Ice Empress Scorpion. It was an existence capable of matching any top-tier spirit. However, right now she was merely a 2-ring spirit grandmaster. So what if it was ultimate ice? Her feeble strength couldn't unleash even a fraction of ultimate ice's true power. For now, they could only pray that Dumming and Erming would emerge victorious. On the other side, the battle had reached a white-hot intensity. Zhongli Wu's face was so dark it looked like water might drip from it. He realized he had severely underestimated these 2 guys who had popped out of nowhere. Not only were Dumming and Erming ridiculously powerful as individuals, but their cooperation with each other was also seamless, as if they were one. One focused on offense while the other focused on defense. The transition between attack and defense flowed smoothly with no flaws whatsoever. After just a few rounds of exchange, 2 titled Douluo on their side had actually been hammered to death by the enemy. Meanwhile, those 2 guys didn't even have a single decent injury on them. This couldn't go on any longer. A ruthless glint flashed in Zhongli Wu's eyes as he exchanged a glance with Vice Sect Master Feng Ling beside him. Vice Sect Master Feng Ling understood instantly. In the next instant, spirit power erupted from her body as she pulled away from the melee. With her evil phoenix possessing her, she charged with a piercing shriek straight toward the 3 sisters, Wang Donger and her companions, at the rear of the battlefield. They were evil soul masters. To achieve their goals, they would stop at nothing. Even if those 3 girls looked quite young, as long as they could serve as bargaining chips to hold the enemy back, then, it didn't matter. Watch out. Dumming and Erming had been keeping part of their attention on the rear all along, so they noticed the moment Vice Sect Master Feng Ling made her move. Almost reflexively, the 2 of them tried to pull back to defend. Yet it was precisely this tiny flaw. The Nether Thunder Douluo, who had been hovering around the edges of the battlefield, accurately seized the opportunity. Die, 7th spirit ability, Nether Thunder Body Infusion. He sneered sinisterly, fusing this spirit ability into his bound spirit tool, magnifying its power several times in an instant. The Nether Thunder Douluo unleashed thunderbolts, blasting them straight at Dumming. ZZZZT. Feeling the destructive force land on his body, Dumming's figure trembled violently, and he couldn't help but frown deeply. Even though his physical constitution was extraordinarily formidable, and he was a level 99 limit Douluo, taking a direct hit from a spirit ability amplified by a class 9 spirit tool meant he couldn't possibly emerge unscathed. A scorching, intense pain instantly spread from his back throughout his entire body. This wasn't over yet, they still had 8 people left. 4 against 1 each, as long as they held Dumming and Erming down, the final victors of this battle would still be them. If they could capture these 2 impressively strong guys, Dumming and Erming, it would be a major achievement, and even Muzan wouldn't say much against them. Big Dad. Seeing this, Wang Donner cried out in heartache, her eyes turning red in an instant. Hee hee. Vice Sect Master Feng Ling let out a triumphant, cold laugh filled with cruelty. She didn't dislike bullying the weak, in fact, she rather enjoyed it. Let these 3 little girls spend the rest of their lives in regret, knowing that their presence caused 2 elders of their family to fall. That taste, hee hee, would definitely be unforgettable for life. You had better worry about yourselves first. As she spoke, her figure had already closed in within 10 meters of the 3 girls, her claws shrouded in black mist looking ready to capture them in an instant. 3 meters. The moment she stepped into the 3-meter radius centered around Ling Qi, a sudden change erupted. Buzz. An indescribable, gentle white light filled with a holy, warm, and merciful aura suddenly burst outward from inside Ling Qi, forming a 6-meter diameter domain of light. Unable to dodge in time, Vice Sect Master Feng Ling plunged headfirst into this holy light. In that moment, her countenance, which had looked somewhat hideous from years of cultivating evil spirit power, softened at a speed visible to the naked eye. The intent to kill, cruelty, and madness on her face completely washed away, replaced by an unprecedented sense of peace and serenity. Sizzle sizzle sizzle. The evil black mist enveloping her body was thoroughly purified in an instant by this soft, holy light. Behind her, her evil phoenix spirit, reeking of evil, actually uttered a cry woven with pain and liberation, its whole body bursting into holy golden flames. In just a few breaths, all the evil aura on the evil phoenix spirit was burned away completely, directly evolving into a holy and noble, fire phoenix. Vice Sect Master Feng Ling slowly opened her eyes. Her gaze, which had been full of wickedness and malice, was now clean and clear. She had completely lost the appearance an evil soul master should have. Not a trace of evil aura remained on her, and even her murderous intent had vanished without a trace. What happened to me? She stared blankly at her hands, as if waking from a long dream. Everyone on the battlefield was completely stunned by this sudden turn of events. Whether it was the evil soul masters of the Holy Spirit cult or Dumming and Erming, all of them stared in disbelief at the girl in the white dress enveloped in holy light, appearing like an angel descending to the mortal realm, Ling Qi. After all, no matter how one looked at her, Ling Qi seemed like a weakling, being so young, her spirit power level was undoubtedly unimpressive. Yet a single spirit ability had produced such a massive impact on Vice Sect Master Feng Ling. One had to realize that Vice Sect Master Feng Ling was a level 97 Super Douluo. If anyone heard that a Super Douluo had been turned into this state by a little girl, no one would believe it. Yet, right now, this was the reality. Vice Sect Master Feng Ling had undergone a drastic transformation, and it was all because of Ling Zai's strange move. How is this possible? Zheng Liwu's eyes nearly popped out of his head. He stared at Vice Sect Master Feng Ling, whose temperament had completely shifted as if reborn, completely stupefied. His wife had just been purified by someone like that. Along with the spirit she had cultivated her entire life, purified together. He had to be dreaming. Chapter 56, launching the Class 9 stationary spirit tool at the Sun Moon Empire every minute. On the other side, another battlefield 100 miles away also fell into a brief, dead silence. Kong Deming and Jing Hongchen stood frozen in place like statues, the expressions on their faces completely solidified. Their eyes were locked tightly onto Muzan. That move actually hadn't been able to cause him any harm whatsoever. Not even a trace of being attacked was left on Muzan's body. It was as if that earth-shattering blow from just now was nothing more than an ethereal illusion. A monster. This had completely exceeded the limits of their understanding of spirit masters and power. How on earth did he do it, withstanding a Class 10 stationary spirit cannon shell head on completely unscathed? This must be a mighty power that only a god possesses. Is this your full strength? Muzan's indifferent voice broke the dead silence. There was no contempt or mockery in his eyes, it seemed like a simple, plain inquiry. He looked at Bright Yi Qishui and spoke slowly. Class 10 spirit tools are useless against me. Put away these useless little toys and show me your real capabilities. Let me see just how much strength the current Supreme Pontiff of Spirit Hall possesses. Boom. Muzan's words exploded in the minds of Kong Deming and Jing Hongchen like a clap of thunder from the highest heavens. What? That wasn't her true strength just now. Their hearts instantly churned like a stormy sea, and a chill rushed straight from the soles of their feet to the crowns of their heads. The way they looked at Bright Yi Qishui became increasingly terrified. What kind of terrifying strength did this so-called current Supreme Pontiff of Spirit Hall still possess? Just what kind of organization was this Spirit Hall, that it could clash with the Holy Spirit cult currently ruled by Muzan? Moreover, the two of them seemed quite familiar with each other. They naturally knew that this Muzan had appeared from the river and was highly likely a clone of Muen from Shrek Academy, so this Bright Yi Qishui should be one as well. It was just, they hadn't expected these people to have such rich experiences, especially since Bright Yi Qishui and Muzan looked like friends who had chosen different paths. If Tang San were here, he might have a deeper understanding of Yi Qishui. In a sense, this woman was one of the cheats he had prepared for his daughter, Tang Wedong. Possessing the bright phoenix spirit, her ultimate destiny was to pass her entire spirit power onto his daughter. In fact, Yi Qishui's life trajectory bore a striking resemblance to that of Bibi Dong, the woman from 10,000 years ago who was equally brilliant but also toyed with by fate. Both of them had been imprisoned. One was defiled in a secret room by Jian Zunji, the Supreme Pontiff of Spirit Hall, the other was subjected to the same despicable means by the leader of the Holy Spirit cult, that old ghost Zhongli. And then, both gave birth to a child towards whom they held incredibly complex emotions. Both were rare geniuses possessing twin spirits once in 10,000 years. However, Bibi Dong's spirits were the Death Spider Emperor and the Soul-Eating Spider Emperor, which made her sound like an evil soul master, whereas Yi Qishui was a combination of light and darkness. Yi Qishui loved Long Xiaoyao but was forced to choose Muen because of the Holy Spirit cult, later giving birth to Zhongli Wu with old ghost Zhongli. Bibi Dong, on the other hand, loved Grandmaster Yu Xiaoging. In a way, both of them suffered from unrequited love. Very well. Bright Yi Chishui's eyes were cold as she slowly put away the spirit tool core floating beside her. In the next instant. Buzz. An indescribable pressure suddenly descended. Behind her, a massive and holy phantom quietly emerged. It was a puppet with 6 pure white wings, floating silently. Though it was a puppet, it exuded a majestic and holy aura like that of a god. Angel puppet, Yi Chishui's first spirit. Black, 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 red, 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 red. 3 black, 6 red. The moment her spirit appeared, Kong Deming and Jing Hongchen felt their very souls tremble. The absolute pressure originating from the spirit's high rank made it almost impossible for them to breathe. And that wasn't all. Screech. A clear, high-pitched phoenix cry filled with holiness and scorching heat echoed through the clouds. At this moment, Bright Yi Chishui's body seemed to completely transform into a ball of burning golden flames. Her entire self, no, it should be said that she had turned into a phoenix bathed in holy light. A scorching, majestic, and sacred, inviolable aura swept across the field like raging waves. Second spirit, Sacred Fire Phoenix. 9, a total of 9 blood red, 100,000-year spirit rings. Kong Deming and Jing Hongchen's eyes nearly popped out of their sockets. They stared fixedly at the total of 15 red spirit rings on Yi Chishui's body, feeling their worldview being ruthlessly shattered. Was this a spirit ring configuration that a human could possibly possess? Twin spirits, both were top-tier spirits, and her spirit ring configuration exceeded the limits of common sense. At this moment, they finally understood why Muzan had said everything before was just little toys. However, when they turned their gaze to Muzan, they became even more shocked. Because even when facing the Class 10 spirit tool just now, Muzan hadn't released a single spirit ability at all. He had simply used his spirit to defend, directly neutralizing the terrifying attack. Die. Bright Yi Chishui's voice became ethereal and majestic. The 6 wings of the angel puppet behind her spread wide, radiating holy light. Meanwhile, the sacred fire phoenix she had transformed into dragged a long golden trail of flames. The 2 top-tier spirits attacked Muzan simultaneously from 2 directions. The entire sky was dyed of pure gold at this moment. Fine, I will wait for you to kill me. Muzan's voice remained calm. He looked at the earth-shattering offensive without even raising an eyelid. He slowly turned to Kong Deming and Jing Hongchen, speaking in an unquestionable tone. I have a task for you. Every minute, launch a Class 9 stationary spirit cannon shell toward the Sun Moon Empire. Doesn't your so-called spirit hall want to protect the safety of the entire continent? If you cannot kill me within a minute, then countless people will die because of you. What? Kong Deming was completely stunned, unable to believe his own ears. This guy, did he know what he was saying? That was a Class 9 stationary spirit cannon shell. He was actually telling them to launch it at the densely populated heartland of the Empire. This man's disregard for life had reached an atrocious level. And, every minute. What kind of confidence was this? No, this was already arrogant beyond belief. Just how long was he planning to fight Bright Yi Chishui? Moreover, from beginning to end, Muzan had no intention of actively attacking Bright Yi Chishui. He was planning to break her heart and destroy her spirit. You are courting death. Hearing Muzan's insulting words, Bright Yi Chishui was thoroughly enraged. The sacred flames on her body burned even more fiercely, and the power of her attack, fueled by her rage, climbed to a whole new peak once again. If you are unwilling to act, then after I settle this matter, there will be no need for the Sun Moon Empire to exist either. Muzan's eyes were filled with cold indifference, without a single trace of killing intent. Chapter 57. Armor is also a spirit tool, armor fusion. Kong Deming and Jing Hongchen exchanged a glance. Deep in their eyes, the unconcealable shock and helplessness they felt were reflected in each other's pupils. They had originally thought that the sudden appearance of Bright Yi Chishui, who claimed to be the supreme pontiff of the Spirit Hall, would be the Sun Moon Empire's silver lining in this catastrophe. But who could have expected that her appearance, instead of bringing hope, would be like a spark thrown into a pan of hot oil, instantly igniting the situation and dragging the entire Sun Moon Empire into the abyss of destruction ahead of schedule. Seeing that the two made no move, Muzan's voice, calm to an infuriating degree, rang out once more. He did not even look at Kong Deming and Jing Hongchen, his gaze remaining locked onto the golden, sacred flames filling the sky. I understand. Since you are unwilling, then there is no use in keeping the Sun Moon Empire around. This was pronouncing a death sentence upon the entire Sun Moon Empire. However, even though Muzan said this, Kong Deming and Jing Hongchen would never comply. They could not possibly launch a Class 9 stationary spirit missile at their own country, this was their bottom line. Shut up. Jing Hongchen could no longer maintain his composure. He roared, and the light of his spirit power and spirit tool machinery burst forth simultaneously. We will never raise a hand against our own home. Muzan, your opponents are us. That's right. Kong Deming also took a step forward, his expression solemn as several core spirit tools quietly emerged around him, radiating a dangerous light. We will fight you, this madman, together. Battle intent surged from the two of them. Powerful spirit ray cannons had already begun charging, preparing to join this battle that was akin to gods fighting. However, the only response they received was Bright Yi Chishui's cold and disdainful voice. Get lost, don't get in the way here. Can your scrap metal possibly be stronger than my Class 10 spirit tool? Boom. As if to prove her words, that seraphim puppet erupted with brilliant holy light once more, forcing Muzan back several steps. Hearing this, Kong Deming and Jing Hongchen's faces turned red and white, an indescribable wave of embarrassment and humiliation instantly washing over them. Indeed, when even Bright Yi Chishui's Class 10 stationary spirit cannon shell, arguably the strongest in the world today, could not harm Muzan in the slightest, what could they possibly achieve? They probably didn't even have the right to scratch his itch, and would only be turned to ash in the world-destroying aftermath of energy. Clearly, they were already standing at the peak of the continent, the very top of the Sun Moon Empire's sole engineer pyramid. Yet today, in this battle, they found themselves so minuscule, so powerless. They didn't even have the right to intervene. This profound sense of powerlessness flooded their minds like a tidal wave. If even Bright Yi Chishui could not defeat Muzan. The moment this thought arose, it chilled them to the bone. They didn't dare think any further, because that outcome was something they absolutely could not accept. The entire Sun Moon Empire would be completely annihilated under Muzan's will, turning into the dust of history. Involuntarily, their eyes turned toward the center of the battlefield once more. Muzan's figure flickered like a ghost through the golden sacred flames and holy light filling the sky. Facing the tempestuous combined attacks of Bright Yi Chishui's two top spirits, he finally truly began to move, starting to dodge. His speed was at the absolute limit. Every flap of the fleshy wings covered in pitch black scales behind him left a series of blurry afterimages in the air. Occasionally, golden flames that could not be entirely avoided fell upon those fleshy wings like maggots on a bone, making a chi-chi sizzling sound and finally leaving some shallow, charred marks. But that was it. This was too ridiculous, wasn't it? They could clearly sense that if those flames fell on them, they would probably be melted in an instant. Yet falling on Muzan, the damage caused was actually so negligible. To what terrifying extent had the defensive power of his fleshy wings reached? Kong Deming and Jing Hongchen looked at each other again. This time, they saw a trace of madness in each other's eyes. They couldn't wait any longer. Conventional means were completely useless. To save the Sun Moon Empire, they had to resort to extraordinary measures. The river. Kong Deming's lips parted slightly, uttering 2 words in a voice only the two of them could hear. Jing Hongchen's body shuddered violently, a trace of hesitation flashing in his eyes. That bizarre little river, although they had done some research on it, there were still far too many unknowns regarding the mysterious power it contained that had not been clearly tested. If they rushed into it, no one knew what would happen. But, did they have any other choice now? Jing Hongchen nodded heavily, his eyes filled with nothing but the determination of burning his bridges. In the next instant, without any hesitation, the two of them immediately activated their flying spirit tools, turning into 2 beams of light. They fled the battlefield at their absolute fastest speed, rushing toward that mysterious little river. The two landed almost simultaneously, kicking up a cloud of dust. Looking at the calm yet bizarre river water before him, Kong Deming took a deep breath, turned to Jing Hongchen, and said in a deep voice. Hongchen, I'll go first. Kong Deming smiled bitterly, without a single trace of hesitation left in his eyes. For the Sun Moon Empire. With a leap, he plunged into the water like a stone thrown into a lake, disappearing with a splash. Jing Hongchen stared intently at the river's surface, his heart in his throat. Right now, the strongest combat forces of the Sun Moon Empire were the two of them. If even jumping in didn't allow them to find a way to save the Empire, then it could only mean the Sun Moon Empire was destined to suffer this catastrophe. The calm river surface suddenly rippled. Splash. A young figure, holding a fishing rod and sitting on a smooth green rock, slowly floated up from the bottom of the river. Lin Feng yawned lazily. With a gentle tug of the fishing line, a figure was reeled straight out of the water by him, suspended in midair. The person had dazzling, golden long hair, a young and handsome face, and tightly closed eyes. However, the aura radiating from him was as deep as the abyss and as vast as the sea, powerful enough to make even Jing Hongchen feel a pang of dread. Oh, young Jing Hongchen Tilda. Lin Feng's slightly playful voice echoed slowly. As the one you dropped, this blonde Kong Deming who was very young. This aura was very powerful, but could he defeat Muzan? Jing Hongchen did not know, but regardless, he could only try. No, that is not the one I dropped. Lin Feng nodded. With a flick of his wrist, that blonde Kong Deming vanished into thin air. The fishing line sank into the water again, and in less than a second, it was yanked up once more. This time, the one reeled in was a Kong Deming with a head of silver hair, a similarly young face, but a temperament that seemed quiet and wise. Then is the one you dropped this silver-haired Kong Deming? Lin Feng asked again. Jing Hongchen's gaze fell upon that silver-haired Kong Deming, and a storm brewed in his heart once more. This Kong Deming did not emit any unpleasant aura. This was too miraculous. According to their previous research and experience, most of the second clones born from this river were uncontrollable. The aura they emitted was filled with violence, darkness, and chaos, making people instinctively feel extremely uncomfortable. Yet the one in front of him had none of that. Not this one either. Lin Feng cast his fishing hook for the 3rd time. This time, the one reeled up was the original Kong Deming who had just jumped into the river, whom Jing Hongchen was incredibly familiar with. Is this the one you dropped? Yes, that's him. Jing Hongchen nodded hastily. Very well, to reward your honesty, I will give you all 3. With a casual wave of his hand, Lin Feng threw all 3 Kong Demings onto the shore. Just as Jing Hongchen scrambled to catch the original Kong Deming, a cold snort rang out beside him. That blonde Kong Deming, who had been the first to be reeled in, slowly opened his eyes. Those eyes were filled with surging battle intent and absolute confidence. Clank, 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 clank. Accompanied by a grating sound of metal friction, a set of flowing, brilliantly colored, sci-fi aesthetic silver-white full-body armor instantly extended from his body, covering him completely from head to toe. A terrifying aura, countless times stronger than the original Kong Deming, erupted violently. Armor fusion. Chapter 58. How is it that we can't beat anyone? The original Kong Deming and Jing Hongchen had their eyes bulging out of their sockets. What is this? What on earth is the principle behind this armor, which seemed to blend with flesh and blood and extend directly from inside the body? This completely exceeded the limits of their cognitive understanding of spirit tool technology. What kind of existence was this unheard of, unseen creation? On the side, the wise eyes of silver-haired Kong Deming flashed with intense interest and probing light, as if he were appreciating a flawless piece of art. You. The original Kong Deming's Adam's apple bobbed as he and Jing Hongchen subconsciously assumed a defensive posture. They were extremely nervous. This blonde, himself, exuded a pure sense of power all over. Why did his armor suddenly merge with him? What was he trying to do? Was he an enemy or a friend? You too. The original Kong Deming could not afford to investigate too much, and anxiously turned to his blonde and silver-haired counterparts for help. The present Sun Moon Empire is suffering a devastating blow. An incomparably powerful Yin. Before he could finish speaking, he was interrupted by blonde Kong Deming's golden hard voice. All evil shall be completely purged. The moment his voice fell, he didn't even glance at anyone else again. Boom. The ground beneath blonde Kong Deming's feet burst apart with a bang, and his entire body transformed into a silvery white meteor, instantly soaring into the sky. That sci-fi filled armor rubbed violently against the air, erupting with a sharp, piercing sound of breaking through the air as it tore through the clouds and flew straight toward the distant battlefield where Muzan was located. The speed was so fast that it even left a long lingering white wake of air in the sky. Watching that instantly disappearing figure, the original Kong Deming and Jing Hongchen had not yet had time to let out a sigh of relief when an inexplicable chill rose from their backs. They stiffly turned their heads and met the gaze of silver-haired Kong Deming. Hee. Silver-haired Kong Deming narrowed his eyes, a gentle and refined smile hanging on his face, yet it was precisely the smile that caused Kong Deming and Jing Hongchen to feel a growing chill in their hearts. That was a feeling as if they were being targeted by a hunter. I can help. Silver-haired Kong Deming pushed up his non-existent glasses on the bridge of his nose and proposed his transaction in a relaxed tone. As long as you are willing to provide 100 ordinary people as my experimental materials, I will immediately make a move and solve your trouble. What? The complexions of the original Kong Deming and Jing Hongchen turned pale in an instant. When this guy came out, they clearly hadn't sensed any uncomfortable evil aura from him at all. Little did they expect, it wasn't that he didn't have it, but rather that he had perfectly hidden that bone-deep madness and evil beneath this refined and amiable appearance. In the eyes of silver-haired Kong Deming, there was only pure playfulness and curiosity. When he spoke of 100 ordinary people, that indifferent tone was no different from mentioning 100 screw parts. Life in his eyes seemed to possess no meaning whatsoever. This was a monster. Absolutely impossible. Without even thinking, the original Kong Deming flatly refused. We will never use the lives of innocent compatriots in exchange for dragging out our lives. Is that so? What a pity. Silver-haired Kong Deming chuckled lightly, his face showing not the slightest bit of annoyance at being rejected. With a gentle wave of his hand, dozens of high-tech silver floating spheres silently appeared around his body. In the center of every single sphere, a dim blue dangerous light lit up. Since you are unwilling to provide materials. His smile grew increasingly playful, and the meaning revealed in his eyes made Kong Deming and Jing Hongchen feel as if they had fallen into an ice cave. Then, let the two of you become my new experimental subjects. The other party's gaze, devoid of a shred of joking, was clearly telling them he was serious. Watch out. Kong Deming let out a stern roar and unhesitatingly brought out his ultimate trump card. Silver Moon Divine Light Shield. Amidst a humming sound, a huge circular protective barrier flowing with bright moonlight, seemingly constructed from solid moonlight, instantly enveloped silver-haired Kong Deming. This was his original spirit tool, a natal spirit tool fused from his own spirit and spirit tool, and also one of the strongest spirit tools in the current era. However, the smile on silver-haired Kong Deming's face did not change in the slightest, he merely moved his fingers. Those dozens of floating spheres received the command, and the dim blue light at the center of the spheres instantly flared brightly. Swish 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 swish. Dozens of blue lasers, as thin as hair yet containing terrifying energy, hit the exact same point of the Silver Moon Divine Light Shield with extreme speed and absolute precision. There was no earth-shattering explosion, not even much of a sound. Only a crisp crack. The Silver Moon Divine Light Shield instantly disintegrated. PFF. Kong Deming was struck as if by a heavy blow, violently spewing a mouthful of fresh blood as his complexion instantly withered. In the eyes of the two men, there was only shock and horror left. Just a single move. His strongest means had been completely crippled in just a single move. Why? Why were the ones coming out of this river all such counterintuitive, incomprehensible, terrifying monsters? That so-called river god, what on earth was his purpose in interfering in the affairs of the Douluo continent? Elder Kong. Jing Hongchen grabbed and supported the tottering Kong Deming, a flash of determination crossing his eyes. He lowered his voice and spoke at the fastest speed possible. I remember our research data records it. As long as one jumps into that river a second time, they will be teleported to an unknown place. I will cover the rear. You stay alive and protect the Sun Moon Empire well. No way. Kong Deming shoved him away, wiped the blood from the corner of his mouth, and roared. As the most powerful soul engineer of the Sun Moon Empire, how could I possibly flee from battle? Hee, truly touching. Silver-haired Kong Deming's voice rang in their ears like a demon's whisper. What a pity, neither of you can escape. As he spoke, he casually tossed a palm-sized metal disc into the air. The metal disc spun at high speed in the air, shooting out countless dazzling lasers. These lasers intertwined and connected on the ground and in the air, instantly forming a cage tens of meters in size that enveloped all three of them within. Silver-haired Kong Deming appreciated the two men's extremely ugly complexions and smiled as he explained. I advise you best not to try touching this thing. Because, besides the high-intensity cutting lasers, I've also added quite a few interesting seasonings to it, over 300 types of mixed neurotoxins and corrosive virulent poisons. Whether human or spirit beast, anyone who touches it will surely die. Oh, right, in order to verify its effectiveness, I once tested it on a 300,000-year spirit beast, and it didn't even last a single second before turning into a puddle of pus. Kong Deming and Jing Hongchen looked at the silver-haired Kong Deming before them, a deep sense of powerlessness rising in their hearts. They couldn't beat Muzan, they couldn't beat Bright Yi Chishui, they couldn't beat blonde Kong Deming, and now they couldn't beat this silver-haired Kong Deming either. Was there anyone left that they could actually beat? Chapter 59. Did this king allow you to move? Just as this sense of powerlessness was about to consume the two, Kong Deming and Jing Hongchen out of the corner of their eyes suddenly caught sight of several figures rushing over. It was none other than the sibling pair Xiao Hongchen and Meng Hongchen, along with the three Huo Yuhao brothers. The five of them had come out from the Sun Moon Royal Soul Engineering Academy at some unknown point, and their destination seemed to be this river as well. The instant they saw them, Kong Deming and Jing Hongchen felt as if a bucket of ice water had been poured over them from head to toe, chilling them to the bone in an instant. Jing Hongchen's heart sank even deeper, his tension reaching an extreme. What was going on? Why did his grandson and granddaughter always choose the worst, most fatal moments to show up? Last time, when he faced Muzan and was completely powerless to resist, they came. This time, when he faced silver-haired Kong Deming, who treated human life like grass, and was similarly powerless to resist, they came again. In that instant, all hope died in Jing Hongchen's heart. It's over. It's completely over. This time, no one could save them anymore. Kong Deming clutched his chest and spoke in a raspy voice. I'm sorry, if it weren't for me. Elder Kong, there's no need to mind. Jing Hongchen interrupted him with a tragic smile. No one could have anticipated that things would turn out like this. Silver-haired Kong Deming's gaze fell with great interest upon the five newcomers, appraising these five new test subjects. He let out a soft laugh, a chilling look of delight gracing his refined face. Oh, 5 new test subjects have arrived. Perfect then, I'll use the 5 of you as my appetizer first. How dare you? Jing Hongchen's eyes nearly split with rage as he shouted furiously. He no longer cared about anything else. Spirit power exploded from his body, and the phantom image of his toad spirit appeared behind him as powerful spirit power fluctuations instantly swept outward. However, silver-haired Kong Deming did not even spare him a direct glance, merely waving his hand casually. Shoo, asterisk. A floating orb instantly tore through the sky, arriving later but striking first, hitting one of Jing Hongchen's freshly raised arms with absolute precision. There was no explosion, nor splattering blood. Under everyone's terrified and appalled gazes, Jing Hongchen's arm seemed to be erased by an invisible eraser, disintegrating inch by inch starting from the fingertips, turning into microscopic particles that dissipated into the air. Grandpa. Xiao Hongchen and Meng Hongchen cried out in shock at this sight. Blood vessels instantly burst in their eyes, filled with boundless worry. When they looked back at silver-haired Kong Deming, only towering rage remained in their eyes. This guy, this bastard actually dared to hurt their grandpa. Xiao Hongchen's knuckles cracked as he clenched his fists, nearly charging forward recklessly. Yet, in the end, he forced himself to hold back. Reason told him that even his grandfather, a pillar of the Sun Moon Empire, was completely helpless before this monster. If he charged over now, he would only cause unnecessary trouble and throw his life away. Just like last time when he was grabbed by Muzan to threaten his grandfather. His life seemed full of this suffocating powerlessness. His luck was truly terrible too. Of the 3 times he had come to the bank of this eerie river, all 3 times he had personally witnessed his grandfather being threatened and crushed. On the other side, the 3 Huo Yuhao brothers saw this, and their expressions turned extremely grim as well. We can't go on like this. Huo Yuhao said in a deep voice, his mind racing frantically to figure out a way to break the deadlock. Huo Yuhao nodded, his golden eyes locked tightly onto silver-haired Kong Deming. Meanwhile, Huo Yu was urgently calling out in his mind. Venerable Yulai, is there any way to solve this current problem? This time, the situation was far more perilous than when they faced evil Xuanzi. Last time, if the 3 Tianmeng Ice Silkworm brothers hadn't stepped in, the 3 of them would likely have died at the hands of evil Xuanzi long ago. Now that the 3 Tianmeng Ice Silkworm brothers were asleep, they lacked sufficiently powerful mental force to directly render silver-haired Kong Deming unconscious and kick him into the river. Moreover, although silver-haired Kong Deming was suppressing his aura, the sense of threat he gave the 3 far exceeded that of evil Xuanzi. Just as thoughts flashed through everyone's minds, silver-haired Kong Deming reached out his hand once again. Buzz, asterisk. That laser cage actually began expanding outward, instantly enveloping the 5 of Huo Yuhao who had just arrived as well. Just as those deadly laser beams were about to slice through their bodies, the gaps in the cage instantaneously widened, allowing them to enter unharmed. Once they were completely enclosed, the gaps shrunk back instantly, returning to their original tightness. This precise control made everyone's scalps tingle with fear. There was no escape. The expressions of the Xiao Hongqian siblings were unsightly to the extreme, whereas the 3 Huo Yuhao brothers were still calmly thinking of an escape strategy. If only they had been given a little more time to grow. Come over here, my experimental specimens. Silver-haired Kong Deming's voice sounded once more, bearing an unquestionable tone of command. Otherwise, I will kill you all. Although, living test subjects are much easier to use than dead ones, dead subjects aren't completely unusable either. Stop, even if you can deal with us, if you run into Muzan, do you think you'll still be able to do your research in peace? Kong Deming spoke out, hoping to shake silver-haired Kong Deming. Of course I can stay at ease. I have yet to meet anyone capable of killing me. Given the chance, I'd also like to perform experiments on that so-called expert you mentioned. Ah, right, and that fellow wearing armor earlier. I really want to know how that guy came up with that kind of spirit tool. Silver-haired Kong Deming chuckled softly. Besides, if I truly can't win, I'll just surrender. I reckon, alive, my practical value would be even greater, wouldn't it? This guy truly possessed no self-respect whatsoever. As long as it was for his experiments, it was as if he could easily discard even himself. And also, no one can kill him. What does that mean? Before Kong Deming had time to think further, a mechanical arm full of metallic luster suddenly extended from behind silver-haired Kong Deming, shooting straight toward the 3 Huo Yuhao brothers with lightning speed. It was extremely fast. Kong Deming failed to react in time, or rather, even if he had reacted, he couldn't have stopped it at all. He was too weak. He was simply far too weak. Kong Deming felt his own weakness deeply, his heart overwhelmed with a sense of helplessness. Peril was imminent. Just at the moment the mechanical arm was about to touch the 3, Huo Yuhao's body violently shuddered. In his pair of golden eyes, a light shone brilliantly and dazzlingly. An ancient, noble, and overwhelmingly domineering aura burst forth from his body without warning. Did this king allow you to move? The mechanical arm shattered in an instant, along with dozens of floating orbs surrounding them, and all of silver-haired Kong Deming's clothing and spirit tools were completely destroyed as well. Chapter 60 Delinger. The strategy of separating the strong and uniting the weak is truly invincible. Stardow Great Forest, Core Region. This was the forbidden zone of forbidden zones that every spirit master on the continent paled at just hearing about. Nowadays, almost all the fierce beasts in the Stardow Great Forest had gathered here, and nearly all of them had transformed into human form. In this place, maintaining their massive bodies would be somewhat restrictive, so they all chose to transform into human appearances, which were small in size and allowed for free movement. At this moment, these fierce beasts were respectfully surrounding several figures in the center, their eyes filled with fanatical adoration and awe. At their center was a young girl dressed in a deep black long dress. The young girl stood quietly, a head of dark, night-like black hair draped casually behind her, reaching down to her waist. Her appearance could no longer be described by the mere word beauty, it was a peerless posture that transcended mortal aesthetics, as if carved from the most perfect things in heaven and earth. Her skin rivaled snow, her eyebrows were like distant painted hills, and her eyes, which seemed to contain the supreme principles of the universe's creation and destruction, were cold and profound, inadvertently revealing an innate majesty and dominance. She simply stood there, forming a world of her own, as if the will of the entire Stardow Great Forest had condensed upon her body, and an intangible aura of an emperor caused the surrounding air to freeze. She was Delinger, currently recognized as the head of the 3 auspicious beasts of the Spirit Beast clan, possessing the highest bloodline and absolute leadership. Beside Delinger quietly stood 2 peerless young girls whose appearances were identical to hers, like triplets carved from the same mold. However, their hair colors and temperaments were completely different. One wore a head of magnificent purple gold long hair and dressed in a luxurious palace skirt of the same color scheme, her temperament noble and gentle, and as her gaze shifted, she carried a benevolence and dignity akin to an empress of the world. She was Dalu, the second of the 3 auspicious beasts. The other young girl had dazzling golden hair tied into a lively single ponytail, and her golden skirt hem gently swayed with her movements. Her temperament was bright and curious, and her lively large eyes were curiously sizing up everything around her, as if filled with a sense of novelty toward all things in the world. She was Di. Master. Dtn respectfully and in a deep voice asked the Silver Dragon King, who was still healing her injuries. Now that our Spirit Beast clan has been blessed with the descent of the 3 auspicious beasts, our fortune is flourishing, and this is truly an unprecedented time of great prosperity. Next, how should we act? We asked the master to give instructions. The Silver Dragon King spoke indifferently, her voice ethereal and majestic. What is the current situation among humans? Dtn did not dare to be the slightest bit negligent and immediately answered truthfully. Reporting to the master, according to the information we have obtained, the Sun Moon Empire among humans has officially declared war on the 3 original empires of Douluo continent, Starluo, Tianyun, and Doling. At the same time, they have also declared war on Shrek Academy. As soon as these words were spoken, the surrounding crowd of fierce beast powerhouses instantly perked up, their eyes flashing with joy and excitement. This piece of information could be said to be quite good news for all the spirit beasts, especially since that so-called Sun Moon Empire possessed powerful spirit tools, which might genuinely cause humans to suffer mutual destruction. This was simply a God-given opportunity. With human internal strife and the appearance of the 3 auspicious beasts among the spirit beasts, this was the best time for the Spirit Beast clan to revive. Roar. Kai Wang, whose temper was the most explosive, could no longer hold back. He stepped forward and suggested in a muffled voice. Master, Dtn, since humans are fighting among themselves, what are we waiting for? We should immediately mobilize a massive army right now and strike straight at the dragon's lair. Completely turn the human world upside down and ensure they can never rise again. However, just as his voice fell, an ice-cold, piercing gaze landed on him. Linger gave Kai Wang a cold glance, her look resembling that of someone gazing at an incorrigible fool. Such an approach is utterly foolish. Her voice was cold and clear, devoid of the slightest trace of emotion. Now that the human race is in a civil war, it is an internal consumption of theirs. Our spirit beast clan should not meddle in it. Why? Kai Wang unconvincingly retorted, this is precisely our best opportunity to weaken them. Foolish. Linger unceremoniously spat out those two words, a flash of disdain crossing her profound eyes. Sit atop the mountain and watch the tigers fight. When the two tigers fight and exhaust themselves, we then step in to assist the weaker side and attack the stronger side. Only by doing so can we continuously deplete the overall strength of humans and allow us to gain the maximum battle results with a minimal cost. If we rashly launch a full-scale attack right now, it will only prompt them to put aside their internal strife and unite to deal with the spirit beasts. Do you not even understand this simple logic? As soon as these words were said, DTN and the other deep-thinking fierce beast powerhouses all lit up with realization, deeply agreeing in their hearts. Brilliant, truly brilliant, they had practically learned human scheming to perfection. As expected of Linger, the head of the auspicious beasts. This level of intellect and this perspective were far beyond what they could reach. Kai Wang was left with a flushed face by Linger's words, lowered his head in shame, and silently retreated. His brainless image of only knowing how to use brute force was now thoroughly ingrained in the beasts' minds. The Silver Dragon King nodded approvingly. Linger's words happened to align with my thoughts. Nowadays, with the three auspicious beasts present in our spirit beast clan, the cultivation speed of all spirit beasts is increasing day by day, and our fortune is flourishing. We need not rush, let us first steady our own development and continuously accumulate strength. In this way, my injuries can also make use of this surging fortune to accelerate recovery. Hearing the word, recovery, DTN's body trembled slightly with excitement. If the master's injuries could fully recover and she returned to the power of her peak period, then the spirit beast clan would truly rise to great prosperity in the world. The layout of the entire Douluo continent would be completely rewritten because of this. The master is wise. DTN excitedly replied, and immediately afterward, he remembered another unresolved major matter. Master, how should we handle the bizarre river? Right now, within that river, there exist humans whose stance is unknown. Hearing this, Linger once again spoke indifferently. There is no need to handle it. That entity within the river is a deity, whom the likes of us cannot deal with, and furthermore, the reason the human race has fallen into such a chaotic situation right now is entirely because of this river. Let them continue to fall into chaos. As she spoke, she gently waved her fair hand. A massive light screen constructed from the power of destiny appeared out of thin air before everyone. On the light screen, images shifted, clearly bringing forth several figures. One was Muzan, exuding evil aura all over, who at this moment was battling bright Yi Qishui and blonde Kong Deming. Another was silver-haired Kong Deming, wearing an elegant smile on his face while casually disassembling Jing Hongchun's arm. Yet another was the commotion over on dark Yi Qishui's side. It could be said that the human world had fallen into complete chaos. Currently, among the spirit beasts, only the three of them had emerged from that river, and the number of spirit beasts was far less than that of humans, therefore, the spirit beasts had not been excessively affected amidst this chaos. Chapter 61, Yan Xiaoj, am I going to die? Not dead yet. On the shore, the gaze of dark Yi Qishui fell upon the three newly landed Yan Xiaoj, a smiling expression on her face. Among them, the dean of the spirit department of Shrek Academy, which was the original Yan Xiaoj, appeared the oldest among the three people. As for the other two, one appeared like a child with black hair and black eyes, his brows filled with unruliness, while the other looked like a youth with flying red hair, also looking quite arrogant. When the original Yan Xiaoj felt the evil aura emanating from that black-haired child, his entire heart plunged into an ice cellar, turning instantly cold and despairing. Another one, this version of himself would definitely not let Shrek Academy off either, probably dealing with Shrek Academy alongside the current Dark Yi Qishui, Dark Ma Xiao Tao, and the Holy Spirit cult behind them. Could it be that in the end, he would also become an obstacle to the academy he had spent his entire life protecting? How is this any different from Xuanzi? For a moment, the original Yan Xiaoj even gave up on himself. His spirit power was now completely sealed, and even his meridians could not feel a shred of spirit power circulating. Wanting to defend his final dignity through self-detonation like a spirit master had become an extravagant hope. Ever since he learned of that bizarre small river, he, a dignified super Douluo and the dean of the spirit department, had constantly suffered setbacks, either suffering setbacks or on his way to suffering setbacks. For Shrek Academy, that river was simply a complete disaster. Not only did 4 members of the Shrek 7 Devils perish in that river, but even his most respected mentor, Old Nguyen, fell because of it. Yan Xiaoj could even roughly guess what kind of choice the current Dark Yi Qishui would make. To an evil soul master, that black-haired, himself, was undoubtedly the best companion. As for himself and the red-haired one, there was only one ending, death. He had already prepared himself to meet death heroically, but thinking about dying in such a stifling manner, dying at the hands of the evil soul master he hated most, he was truly vexed. Have you figured out how you want to die? The voice of Dark Yi Qishui rang out coldly, carrying undisguised banter and mockery. A dignified super Douluo actually couldn't even decide his own life and death. What utter humiliation. Mom, hurry up and kill them. We still need to restore the Holy Spirit cult, don't waste time on trash like this. Just at this moment, that black-haired child Yan Xiaoj suddenly spoke impatiently, urging Dark Yi Qishui. What? The original Yan Xiaoj suddenly widened his eyes, his face filled with shock and incredulity. Mom. The other himself, actually called this evil woman, Mom. Belonging to the same faction was one thing, but how did a parent-child relationship come out? What on earth are these things coming out of this river? Alright, we'll listen to my son. A trace of doting expression actually appeared on the face of Dark Yi Qishui, as if she were looking at her most cherished child. It was actually true, the original Yan Xiaoj couldn't believe it. If the woman before him and the other himself had a parent-child relationship, then, what relationship did that original woman have with himself? But without thinking much about it, the original Yan Xiaoj quickly gave up pondering. Even if there was a relationship, so what? He was ultimately just a person on the verge of death. Even if he knew the relationship of his family, what good would that do? The original Yan Xiaoj was already prepared to welcome his own death. However, Dark Yi Qishui did not prepare to strike at the original Yan Xiaoj first, but instead planned to deal with the red-haired Yan Xiaoj first. In her view, the original Yan Xiaoj was already a fish on the chopping board with no threat at all. Instead, this sharp or his red-haired youth needed to be dealt with first. HMPH. The red-haired Yan Xiaoj let out a cold huff. Facing the pressure of a limit Douluo, there was not the slightest trace of fear in his eyes, only a sky-high fighting spirit. Surrender without a fight, absolutely impossible. Divine Phoenix. He let out an explosive shout, and dazzling golden flames suddenly rose from behind him, transforming into a huge, sacred, and majestic phantom of a phoenix. The scorching and bright aura seemed to purify all darkness in the world. Overestimating your capabilities. Dark Yi Qishui let out a disdainful chuckle. With a wave of her hand, she shielded the black-haired Yan Xiao and Dark Ma Xiao Dao behind her. Immediately, a completely contrasting terrifying aura erupted from within her body. Abyssal Phoenix. Pitch black flames soared into the sky. A dark phoenix composed of pure abyssal power let out a piercing screech. Boom. One gold and one black, the two huge phoenixes fiercely collided in midair. The sacred flames and the abyssal flames crazily eroded and annihilated each other, and the terrifying energy impact erupted caused the surrounding ground to crack inch by inch. For a time, the two actually fought evenly, trading blows back and forth. The original Yan Xiao watched in dumbfounded amazement, unable to help but sigh inwardly that this red-haired version of himself was truly formidable in strength. He could actually go toe-to-toe against Dark Yi Qishui, who was a limit Douluo. On the contrary, what about himself? He couldn't even withstand a single move from Dark Yi Qishui and fell into her hands without even being able to struggle. The original Yan Xiao continued to look at the two of them. Although their battle was fierce, the red-haired Yan Xiao was still falling into a disadvantage. Dark Yi Qishui's strength was very strong, at least not something the red-haired Yan Xiao could compare to. Being able to hold on in Dark Yi Qishui's hands for so long was already enough. Just a moment later, that pitch-black abyssal phoenix abruptly opened its giant mouth and forcefully bit off the head of the divine phoenix. Puff. The sacred flames abruptly collapsed, and the red-haired Yan Xiao suffered a heavy blow, violently spitting out a mouthful of blood. His body flew backward, heavily crashing onto the ground, and his aura instantly withered. Dark Yi Qishui walked toward him step by step, raising her palm of binding with black flames. The original Yan Xiao closed his eyes slightly and gently sighed. It's over. Next, it should be his turn. In the end, was he going to die after all? At this moment, everyone's gaze was basically concentrated on Dark Yi Qishui and the red-haired Yan Xiao. This fellow was going to die. The original Yan Xiao sighed. At this moment, a revolving lantern of memories had already begun playing in his mind. His first half of life was somewhat interesting. He had met quite a few people, communicated with many, and defeated quite a few opponents. It was just a pity that he also failed some people, Vice Sect Master Feng Ling, Martial God Douluo Xianliner, Kai Meyer. As for the second half of his life, he had done even more wrong things and failed to protect Shrek Academy that his teacher had always guarded. What a failure. Just at this time, the original Yan Xiao suddenly felt a hand resting on his body. It was an aged, withered hand, and the whole body emitted an evil aura. Who intended to make a move against him? Before Yan Xiao could react, he was grabbed by the owner of that hand, and jumped back into that small river. Chapter 62. Did he swallow the entire ice and fire yin yang well? Sunset Forest, Central Basin. The figures of Righteous Xuanzi and Tang San quietly appeared on the outskirts of this secluded place. This basin looked ordinary, but the sky above was shrouded in a thick, colorful, and peculiar miasma. This miasma was like a natural barrier, not only blocking line of sight and preventing people from seeing the scenery inside, but also exuding a highly toxic aura capable of corroding even the air. This was precisely the natural toxic barrier formed by the Japhis 47 absolute flowers. Whether human spirit masters or spirit beasts in the forest, upon sensing this deadly poisonous gas, they would subconsciously choose to stay far away, viewing this place as an absolute forbidden zone for life. Tang San's heart instantly sank to the bottom of the valley when he saw this familiar toxic barrier. It's over. After all, he still managed to find it, this old fellow. His only hope now was to pray that this insurmountable toxic barrier could block Righteous Xuanzi's steps and prevent Righteous Xuanzi from succeeding. But, is this possible? Tang San instantly dismissed this unrealistic fantasy in his heart. Righteous Xuanzi's strength was unfathomable, far more formidable than Duming and Erming. Even if he didn't know how to break this toxic barrier, once one's strength reached a certain level, they could directly ignore the toxic barrier, and Righteous Xuanzi happened to have this strength. The moment he thought about how the ice and fire yin yang well, the celestial paradise he had spent his heart's blood to find 10,000 years ago, his very own ice and fire yin yang well, was about to become someone else's wedding dress, Tang San's heart was bleeding. Every single immortal herb inside was an important cornerstone for him to revive the Tang Sect and enhance his strength. It seems this is the place. Righteous Xuanzi looked at the toxic barrier before him, a flash of bright light crossing his clean eyes as he spoke indifferently. Teacher, this place looks very dangerous. Tang San spoke with feigned worry, cautiously probing. Could the ice and fire yin yang well you mentioned really be in a place like this? There only seems to be a layer of toxic barrier here. He did not dare to directly deny it, as that would only arouse Righteous Xuanzi's suspicion. He could only use this roundabout method, hoping to shake the other party. Hee hee. Righteous Xuanzi let out a meaningful chuckle. Wealth and glory are sought amidst danger. The more perilous a place ordinary people avoid, the more likely it is to give birth to true rare treasures of heaven and earth. How would ordinary people ever imagine that behind this highly toxic miasma lies a treasure land brimming with immortal herbs? Just like the core region of the Stardow Great Forest, ordinarily, wanting to find a 100,000-year spirit beast to act as a spirit ring is no easy feat, but once you enter that core region, 100,000-year spirit beasts are everywhere. Old slippery fellow. Tang San cursed inwardly. This old fellow actually understood so well. It seemed completely impossible for him to fool the other party now. In that case, I can only think of a way to fish for as many benefits for myself as possible after going in. Then, teacher, what should we do next to get in? Tang San put on the expression of a curious baby, asking with a thirst for knowledge all over his face. At this moment, his brain had already begun to spin frantically, formulating the subsequent plan. After going in, I must get my hands on the few immortal herbs I need most at the very first moment. Righteous Xuanzi, this pumpkin, certainly couldn't know the heaven-defying efficacy of every single immortal herb like I do. He definitely doesn't know quality goods. At that time, I'll just casually take one or two, and then say, this looks quite pretty, acting spoiled in the capacity of a disciple. A fellow like Righteous Xuanzi surely won't bicker with a disciple like me over one or two pretty flowers and plants. Right, that's what I'll do. Moreover, within the ice and fire yin yang well, there are still two powerful fierce beasts inhabiting it. By then, Righteous Xuanzi will inevitably come into conflict with them. Perhaps taking advantage of when they start fighting, I can fish in troubled waters and reap more benefits. Tang San even began to pray secretly in his heart, hoping that Righteous Xuanzi and those few fierce beasts inside would fight even more fiercely and intensely. Of course, it would be best if it doesn't affect those precious immortal herbs I've set my eyes on. Just as Tang San was calculating all this in his heart, Righteous Xuanzi's reply completely exceeded his expectations. Go in. Righteous Xuanzi glanced at him, a trace of banter flashing in his eyes. Who said we were going in? Tang San was directly stunned. Not going in? How are we supposed to get the immortal herbs if we don't go in? What on earth is this old fellow up to? Seeing that Righteous Xuanzi no longer paid attention to him, he instead took a step forward, and that righteous aura on his body erupted with a bang at this moment. The next moment, the 9 spirit rings on Righteous Xuanzi's body suddenly lit up, and the dazzling crimson gold light of the 7th spirit ring was blinding to the extreme. Martial soul true body. Roar. A terrifying roar that seemed to come from the primordial chaos echoed across heaven and earth. Behind Righteous Xuanzi, a peerlessly giant phantom slowly emerged. That was not the Teoti divine ox spirit like Xuanzi's, but a much older, more noble Teoti possessing true dragon bloodline as one of the dragon god's 9 sons. And this Teoti emitted a sacred aura, completely different from its ferocious appearance. This was his spirit, the divine Teoti. The towering divine Teoti phantom behind him instantly materialized. Tang San was oppressed by this terrifying and peerless aura to retreat repeatedly, his face filled with shock. What is the situation? Could this madman Righteous Xuanzi plan to directly attack the entire ice and fire yin yang well, thinking of breaking the toxic barrier in this manner? Just how many precious immortal herbs will this destroy? However, a scene that left him dumbfounded and his brain completely crashing appeared. Seeing that huge divine Teoti suddenly opened its giant maw, which seemed capable of devouring the heavens and earth, it aimed straight at the entire basin ahead. An indescribably terrifying suction force suddenly erupted. The winds and clouds changed color, and space distorted. That layer of Jade Phosphor 7 absolute flower toxic barrier that people feared and dared not approach by even half a step was like paper in front of this suction force, instantly being torn apart, devoured, and disappearing without a trace. Immediately following was everything in the valley. Soil, rocks, trees, as well as those immortal herbs that Tang San's soul dreamed of and regarded as treasures. And the spring water of the ice and fire yin yang well itself. Everything was uprooted under that terrifying suction force, transforming into a multicolored torrent that crazily poured into the giant maw of the divine Teoti. The entire process didn't even exceed 10 breaths. When all the dust settled, the original valley had already vanished, leaving behind only a bottomless giant pit. As for Tang San, he was completely stunned in place, his mind blank as if someone had cast a body freezing spell on him. What is the situation? He swallowed the entire ice and fire yin yang well. Completely. Chapter 63, Old Thing, you already have a path to your own death. Master. Tang San's voice trembled slightly and uncontrollably. He clenched his fists so tightly that his nails dug deep into his palms, using every ounce of strength in his body to barely suppress the monstrous hatred that was about to gush out from his chest. I once saw records in an ancient book saying that in such places of heaven and earth treasures, if the immortal herbs within are forcibly moved by external forces, they might clash and merge due to drastic environmental changes. Once they merge, the medicinal properties will completely fail. Utter waste of heavenly treasures. This bastard, idiot, old fellow. Tang San cursed and roared madly in his heart. That was the ice and fire yin yang well. It was his Tang San's ice and fire yin yang well. It was the most important cornerstone on his path to becoming a god in this lifetime. It was a supreme treasure that condensed the creation of heaven and earth. How dare this old immortal fellow? How dare he just swallow it like that in one gulp? Does he understand what an immortal herb is? Does he know the value of those immortal herbs? Does he know how each immortal herb should be paired and used to exert its maximum efficacy? He doesn't know. He doesn't know anything. He was like a stupid pig that broke into a medicinal garden, eating all the top-grade herbs just like pig feed. At this moment, the fury in Tang San's heart almost burned away his sanity completely. He wished he could immediately sacrifice his Buddha's fury Tang Lotus and blow this hateful old fellow in front of him into flying ashes. Oh. Righteous Xuanzi slowly withdrew his martial soul through body, and the terrifying aura that could destroy heaven and earth dissipated along with it. He turned around, his clean eyes staring straight at Tang San as if trying to see right through Tang San. Tang Yin, what else have you been hiding? His voice was calm, yet it carried an unquestionable majesty. From the very beginning, you repeatedly hinted to me, wanting me to stay away from this place. Now that I have taken away the ice and fire yin yang well, you immediately showed an appearance of knowing everything about its internal situation. Shouldn't you give me an explanation? Tang San's expression instantly stiffened. Not good. He secretly thought it was bad. Because the impact brought by swallowing the entire ice and fire yin yang well was simply too huge, it caused his state of mind to momentarily slip, actually exposing his flaws in front of this old fellow. However, Tang San was Tang San after all. The skin of someone living through 3 lifetimes had long been tempered to be thicker than a city wall. The stiffness on his face lasted only for a split second before he immediately put on a flustered and fearful smile. Master, you misunderstood. How could this disciple dare to hide anything from you? These are also things this disciple heard by hearsay, and I don't know whether they are true or false myself. Hearsay. Righteous Xuanzi frowned slightly, his face clearly spelling out the 2 words, disbelief. Yes. Tang San hurriedly nodded and bowed to explain, his brain spinning at high speed to make up and use his knowledge from his past life on the spot. Just think about it, since it is called the ice and fire yin yang well, it must be half extreme cold and half extreme heat. The immortal herbs growing around it must also have this characteristic. Things with completely opposite attributes gathered together, just like spirits with water and fire attributes, will naturally repel each other. If one isn't handled well, wouldn't they fail? This disciple was just making a reasonable guess based on the name. It shouldn't be taken seriously, Righteous Xuanzi gave him a deep look before slowly speaking. You don't need to worry about this point. My Teoti space forms a world of its own. Although it looks chaotic during absorption, once inside, everything will maintain its original appearance and position without the slightest deviation. What? Tang San was directly stunned. Was it that useful? Doesn't that mean his immortal herbs were still there, and completely undamaged? In an instant, Tang San's mind became active again. His eyes rolled around, and he immediately stepped forward, probing with a somewhat flattering tone. Master Spirit is truly too miraculous. This disciple has never heard of it. Then, Master, should we take a look right now to see what kind of immortal herb treasures are actually inside this ice and fire yin yang well? However, Righteous Xuanzi directly refused him flatly. No need. His tone was resolute and decisive. Such treasures are of great importance. Only the Supreme Pontiff of Spirit Hall has the qualification to confirm it firsthand and distribute it personally. Neither you nor I have the right to pry. Damn it. Tang San cursed inwardly once more. Secretly taking out a few to use without anyone knowing, who would discover it? This old fellow is truly rigid, dull, stupid to the extreme. Just as he was complaining inwardly, a cold and majestic pressure suddenly descended from the sky, pressing down heavily on him. Humph. Righteous Xuanzi let out a cold snort. Tang San only felt a tightness in his chest, as if suppressed by an invisible giant mountain, making even breathing difficult. His face instantly flushed red. Fortunately, this pressure lasted only for a moment before disappearing without a trace. Tang Yin, pull back all those little thoughts of yours. Righteous Xuanzi's voice became incomparably cold. Otherwise, when the time comes to meet the Supreme Pontiff, you will sooner or later suffer the consequences of your own actions. If it weren't for seeing that your spirit has no evil chi, based on that little thought of yours just now, I would suppress you right now. Quote. Yes, this disciple knows his mistake. Tang San lowered his head and answered submissively. But beneath those lowered eyelids, an imperceptible, viper-like viciousness flashed and vanished. Old thing. You already have a path to your own death. When his divine skill is completed, the first thing he will do is behead this old thing. However, he was still quite weak right now and still needed to rely on Righteous Xuanzi, this old thing. Once he lost his usefulness, he guaranteed that this grudge would definitely be avenged. If he does not kill this thief, he, Tang San, swears he will not be a man. Let's go, matters here are settled, we should go meet the Supreme Pontiff. Righteous Xuanzi flicked his sleeves and turned around. Yes. Tang San nodded again, but inwardly he sneered repeatedly. The Supreme Pontiff of Spirit Hall. He wanted to see just what kind of sacred person the Supreme Pontiff of Spirit Hall currently was. 10,000 years ago, he had completely destroyed Spirit Hall, which was the continent's #1 force. Even if there were dual gods, so what? They still wouldn't be his match. Nowadays, there are actually still people daring to use this name and rebuild Spirit Hall. Truly ignorant of life and death. Just wait, once I recover my strength, 10,000 years ago I could destroy you once, and 10,000 years later, I can destroy you a second time. Before Tang San could react from his thoughts, Righteous Xuanzi's large hand, like iron pliers, had already grabbed his shoulder in one go. The next moment, an irresistible immense force came over, and Tang San was lifted up directly, transforming into a stream of light as he flew rapidly toward the direction of the Sun Moon Empire. Chapter 64. One defection, the situation reverses. At this moment, on the battlefield between Daming, Erming, and the Holy Spirit cult. Because Vice Sect Master Feng Ling was purified by Ling Qi, everyone present couldn't help but fall silent. You could hear a pin drop. Everyone's gazes were focused on Vice Sect Master Feng Ling, whose temperament had drastically changed as if she had been reborn, and the young girl behind her, Ling Qi, whose face was slightly pale yet still emitting a gentle radiance. Feng Ling, make your move quickly. Kill those 3 brats. Even though Vice Sect Master Feng Ling looked like she had been purified, Zheng Liwu still tried to awaken her. Vice Sect Master Feng Ling gently shook her head, her voice calm and soft, yet it clearly entered the ears of everyone present. Zheng Liwu, stop this. We're wrong. This meaningless slaughter brings nothing besides more pain, and we gain nothing from it. There's no need to continue this anymore. Boom. This sentence was no less than a thunderbolt, exploding deafeningly in the minds of all the Holy Spirit cult members. They were evil soul masters after all. Bringing pain to the world was their mission. What did not gaining anything have to do with them? Zheng Liwu's expression was complex as he looked at the Vice Sect Master Feng Ling before him. He knew that Vice Sect Master Feng Ling was no longer the original Vice Sect Master Feng Ling, but merely another person wearing Vice Sect Master Feng Ling's skin. Make your move, take out those 3 brats first. Zheng Liwu decisively gave the order. Eliminating that brat who used the bizarre spirit ability might just make Vice Sect Master Feng Ling change back. At this moment, Ling's eye's condition was not very good. The moment he gave the order, on the other side, Wang Donner and Bing Luer hurriedly supported the slightly swaying Ling Qi from left and right. Sister Ling Qi, are you okay? Wang Donner asked anxiously. Ling's eye's face was somewhat pale, and fine beads of fragrant sweat seeped from her forehead. She gently shook her head and managed to squeeze out a smile. I'm fine, it's just that my spirit power consumption was a bit large. With the strength of a mere 3-ring spirit elder, forcefully purifying a level 97 super Douluo, no matter how sacred and special her spirit was, the burden was unimaginably heavy. At this moment, she only felt as if all the strength in her body had been drained, and even standing firm was somewhat difficult. The spirit power of the remaining Holy Spirit cult titled Douluos erupted once again without reservation. The terrifying coercion intertwined into an inescapable net, enshrouding Daming, Erming, and Vice Sect Master Feng Ling toward them. Daming and Erming's expressions instantly turned exceptionally ugly. There were still too many people. Moreover, looking at Ling's eye's current state, she was clearly powerless to launch a second miracle-like purification spirit ability. However, the only good news was Vice Sect Master Feng Ling had joined them. Roar, roar. The roar of the Sky Azure Bull Python and the angry roar of the Titan Giant Ape resounded through the heaven and earth once again. The great battle was on the verge of breaking out. However, this time, before Daming and Erming could rush forward, a gorgeous and agile figure actively intercepted them between themselves and the 3 girls including Ling Qi. Chirp. A clear and high-pitched phoenix cry replaced the previous evil and strange shrieks. The light of the 7th spirit ring on Vice Sect Master Feng Ling's body burst forth brilliantly, and her martial soul true body reappeared. However, what appeared this time was no longer the awe-inspiringly evil phoenix, but rather a fire phoenix whose entire body burned with sacred golden flames, filled with an atmosphere of light and nobility. The fire phoenix spread its huge wings, firmly protecting Wang Donner, Bing Luer, and Ling Qi behind it, forming a barrier of flames. You guys, quickly fall back. Vice Sect Master Feng Ling turned her head and said softly to the 3 girls. With Vice Sect Master Feng Ling protecting the rear, they could finally let loose. Merely because of the defection of one person, the situation of the entire battlefield actually underwent a subtle reversal in an instant. The situation that was originally extremely favorable to the Holy Spirit cult seemed to become less stable. Nether Thunder Douluo and the others clearly realized this, and their attack targets changed immediately. First, make Vice Sect Master Feng Ling lose her combat capability. Zheng Liwu spoke. Given their many years of husband and wife affection, Zheng Liwu didn't want to deal a fatal blow. Moreover, as long as Ling Qi was eliminated, everything would change back. Abomination, Mask, the 2 of you go quickly, the rest, take down these 2 fellows together with me. He was very clear that the strength of Daming and Erming was too terrifying. His side had to concentrate an absolute superiority of strength to possibly resolve the battle in a short time. Therefore, at most only 2 people could be sent to deal with Vice Sect Master Feng Ling. Any more, and their frontal battlefield would instantly plunge into an absolute disadvantage. Yes, Vice Sect Master. In the crowd, 2 black shadows responded and rushed out. They were none other than Abomination Douluo and Mask Douluo. The two of them sneered, bypassed the main battlefield, and pincered towards Vice Sect Master Feng Ling from left and right. Yet even so, when Zhongli Wu led the remaining titled Douluos to collide head-on with Ming and Ming once again, that familiar, despair-inducing pressure rushed over them once more. Bang! Ming's giant fist, comparable to a mountain, fiercely collided with an evil soul master's defensive spirit ability. With a crisp, crack sound, that evil soul master's protective spirit power instantly shattered, and the whole person was struck by lightning as they spat a mouthful of fresh blood and flew backward. On the other side, the divine tail of Ming's Sky Azure Bull Python true body flicked, and Azure Light suddenly appeared, easily neutralizing the joint attack of two evil soul masters. The terrifying force reverberated back, forcing the two of them to retreat repeatedly. Zhongli Wu and Nether Thunder Douluo's expressions were as ugly as they could possibly be. These two fellows were simply too hard to fight. Are these even human? They were simply two fierce beasts wearing human skin. Meanwhile, the battlefield on the other side also presented a situation they never expected. Abomination Douluo and Mask Douluo, who were sent to deal with Vice Sect Master Feng Ling, were both only ordinary level 91 or 92 titled Douluos, but wanting to bypass a super Douluo to attack those three brats was still possible. Yet reality gave them a fiercely loud slap in the face. They couldn't get close at all. Therefore, they could only choose to eliminate Vice Sect Master Feng Ling first. As soon as the two of them made a move, they used powerful spirit abilities, attempting to take down Vice Sect Master Feng Ling quickly. However, facing the combined pincer attack of the two, Vice Sect Master Feng Ling only gave a light snort, and the Fire Phoenix true body behind her shook its wings. Whoosh! The sacred golden flames filling the sky swept out as if they possessed life. The nauseating domain of Abomination Douluo, the moment it contacted these golden flames, made a chi sound as if encountering its nemesis, and large swaths of black chi were directly purified and vaporized. Moreover, the cage formed by Mask Douluo's mental force and spirit power was burned and twisted out of shape by these utmost young and utmost rigorous flames. However, this was also normal. One must know that within the Holy Spirit cult, Vice Sect Master Feng Ling's strength was naturally second only to a mere few people, the Sect Master, the Vice Sect Master, and Dragon Emperor Douluo Long Xiaoyao. She was a genuine level 97 Super Douluo. Now, her spirit had changed from the Evil Phoenix to the Fire Phoenix. Not only did she not become weaker, but because of the purification of her attributes, her power became even purer. To these evil soul masters, these flames were simply their natural nemesis. Facing this power, the spirits of Abomination Douluo and Mask Douluo even began to tremble in fear uncontrollably. Suppressed by attribute restraint, the two of them working together were beaten into a disadvantageous position by Vice Sect Master Feng Ling alone. Chapter 65. You cannot escape the control of Lord Muzan. The battle was developing